The RaceKraft V8 Veterans Championship heads to Fuji Speedway, Japan, with the typhoon almost bearing down on us. More on that later. It's the no chicane version, which means things are a little bit more free-flowing, a little bit higher speed as we take on the TGR 300. This track owned by Toyota, favoured by Toyota, and they love racing here. Maybe we'll get the supercar in iRacing at some point too. To bring you live coverage of 300 kilometres of racing tonight, I'm David Haynes with Brock Cadday and Daniel Yeaman in the production, our graphics, and probably keeping an eye on the weather radar. But it's a very good evening to you, Brock. We love when we go V8 Vets racing, and 300Ks is a big bowl full of it.
Hello everybody, it is good to be back in the box after a week off last week, and I am excited. 300 kilometers around a great racetrack like Fuji with a little bit of rain on the horizon. Couldn't come back to a better round. We're in round 8 of our RaceKraft V8 Veterans Championship, Season 27. We've just come from COTA NASCAR West. Wayne Walker continuing his dominant run through this championship. After Fuji, we've only got 2 more rounds left of this championship. One of them, round 9, Nürburgring combined 24-hour, an absolute slog of 200 kilometres around there, and we will finish up this championship at the Adelaide Street Circuit for 250 kilometres in a couple of weeks' time, but still a lot of racing to go between now and then.
As you can see, Wayne Walker has been the driver to beat for 6 of 7 weeks so far, but there are a few curveballs to come in this calendar with weather, with the Nordschleife, etc. still to come. He's on 953 points, leading the way from Paul Young and Dean Logsdale. Ken Latta with a good result at COTA West jumps up into 4th. Things didn't go quite as cleanly for Troy Stonestreet, so he is 1 point behind. Mark Poynton is in 6th, with Luke Allman in 7th. Then there's Latham in 8th. Brian Borg benefiting from some of the drop rounds being counted and also finding a little bit more consistency himself up into 9th place as Jeff Thomas sits in 10th.
Yeah, biggest mover here, John Gallen up to 16th there. Plus 10, and then biggest shakers being Justin McLean, being Justice McLean there. Didn't start round 7. He's got 2 DNSs and 1 DNF this season, so definitely has not been his season, unfortunately, dropping 16 positions round on round.
So time to look at the version of Fuji Speedway that we'll be racing on in the land of the rising sun, between Tokyo and Mount Fuji, an icon of Japan and a very visible landmark almost everywhere you go, is Fuji Speedway, owned by Toyota Motor Corporation. They initially had plans for a banked speedway. Watch a Reese Gardner video about that one. You can see part of it going on beyond Turn 1, but this is the version of the track that we've raced on since 2005. Very tight Turn 1 hairpin, fast Turn 3 into a long sequence of corners and a hairpin at Turn 6. You can sometimes sneak down the inside of a dive bomb there. We pick up speed towards Turn 10, Dunlop corner, and we cut out the chicane tonight. We get into the switchback arena of the final couple of corners. Turn 16 tightens very late, and your drive is critical because it is a monster front stretch here at Fuji Speedway. Long, full throttle into a tight Turn 1. Pit entry comes off almost halfway down the straight. That can be a challenging pit entry at speed under green flag conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of opportunities here to be smart and wait for your opportunity to get some passes done with a couple of hairpins here, the long straight creating some great drafting opportunities. I think we're on for a really interesting race here tonight, but being a long one, everyone's just going to have to keep their head and make sure that we all get to the end of this one. Couple of key stats from V8 Vets in the past. Previous Split 1 races in the Gen 2 cars were won by Jason Bentz in Season 12 in 2022 and by Jeff Thomas in Season 20, that was in 2024. Average speed over a lap is 164 kilometers an hour based on that 1 minute 39 lap time. Minimum speed is at turn 1, as David was just talking about, that hairpin style of about 75 to 80 kilometers an hour. And towards the end of that front straight, these guys will be just ticking on 280 kilometers an hour as they fly into that hairpin.
So with 300 kilometers ahead of us, almost anything could happen. It's 67 laps, which means you've got to complete 51 to be 3/4 complete and be a scored points finisher. The weather is hanging around just a little bit. Not only is there clouds over Fuji-san, Mount Fuji, but some over the racetrack in the valley as well. We'll keep an eye on that, but a chance that somewhere around the sort of 1/3 point of the race, a little bit of weather begins to come our way. Starting fuel is 80 litres with an uncapped fuel tank capacity. That gives us a pretty wide pit stop window to make the 2 compulsory pit stops, with the window opening at the end of lap 2. Asterisk, terms and conditions apply. Ask your safety car if that's right for you. So we'll take a look at some of the strategies, Brock.
Yep, as you mentioned, David, very wide strategic window here with this being such a long race with the uncapped fuel tank and the higher starting fuel. So, as always, we've got our early, even, and late stops. Early stop would be bringing you in as soon as that compulsory pit stop window opens, and then pitting right around the critical lap to get home, and then essentially you've got a long old run to the flag there. Your even stint and late stint are stopping on the same lap, lap 22, effectively running out the fuel from that first from the start of the race, and then the even stint will look to balance those tyres throughout the whole race, whereas the late stoppers, they'll try go all the way towards the end of this thing, run that fuel tank bare, and then whack on some fresh tyres and try and get it to the end. All of this with a bit of an asterisk on it around the rain when that comes, when it's more convenient to stop to get your wet tyres on, and what that does with your fuel strategy. So this is an ideal race situation here, but we're not necessarily staring at that tonight.
Got to think on your feet, and I think back to last season at Suzuka, where rain was possible but not guaranteed, and this split 1 of RaceKraft V8 Vets didn't get any rain. Split 2, 3, 4, they certainly got a little bit, so there will be a random element to this that no one can completely predict, even with their head absolutely deep in the data. Let's take a look at some of our drivers who are joining the Zoom tonight. Drivers get 1 bonus point for doing so, and some of them, they want to show off their setup. Some of them, they think 1 point will be absolutely critical in their quest for the championship. That's why Wayne Walker began to join us. So Luke Allman out of the rig, probably, doing his stretches, his warm-ups, staring himself in the eyes in the mirror and yelling profanities. Oh, he's coming back. Okay. And then Michael Stewart, who has the greatest tracks in the world. No doubt Fuji is on that. Wayne Sanderson in VR, and he's had a couple of good results lately. Never surprised to see him in the top 5. Ray Smith there with his setup. Phil Manuel there, keeping an eye on the heart rate of Damien Cairns in his 200th round of V8 Vets. Travis Hunt hasn't got the earphones just on just yet, but he's still got his Cam Waters. There's Ken Latter moving up the standings after last round. Paul Young ready to go, just working through his Discord there. That's what he's doing. Simon Haynes, dash awaiting the race getting underway. Wayne Walker, your championship leader. Having righted the camera last week, Greg Sharp's camera has taken another tumble, and he'll be racing uphill, and Justin McLean gives us pedal cam. But wait, a late entrant. Here comes Dean Logsdale. Hello, Dean.
He's just snuck in there, so as always, a great look at our Zoom wall and all of our Zoom attendees, and we'll always try to check in with each of them. We've got such a long race tonight, I reckon we'll be able to do some onboards and check in with each of them and how they're going along the way there. Good to see some of our regulars back in the likes of Michael Stewart as well. A couple of weeks off, but he's back in the sim now.
Wayne Sanderson's off. He'll be back, no doubt. We are 2 minutes away from gridding. The drivers are getting ready, and the grid is locked in. It'll be a standing start down towards tight turn 1, and Wayne Walker will have the best shot of that. But Brian Borg has qualified second. A little bit more red on his livery now, and he is starting from the front row. There's Ken Latter in third, Paul Young in fourth. Good qualifying at Fuji for Chris Burridge, up in fifth there with Travis Hunt, who we saw on the Zoom wall, starting from sixth. Wayne Sanderson, we said never surprised to see him in the top 5. He'll start from 7th, so he's not far away. Logan Barnett alongside him in 8th. There's Dean Logsdale 9th on the grid. And John Gallen completes that top 10.
Out of 11th, we've got Damien Cairns in his 200th V8 Vets round. Troy Stonestreet in 12th. Dan Hall in 13th and Lorne McKee in 14th. Good qualifying for him. Luke Allman in 15th and Ray Smith in 16th. 17th, Brad Doble and Greg Sharp out of 18th. And rounding out our top 20 here tonight, we've got Andrew Rushworth and Mark Poynton.
So Chad Lewis has qualified 21st, just a thousandth of a second ahead of Phil Manuel on our Zoom wall there. Dave Arney from 23rd, and there's Michael Stewart in 24th, another driver on the Zoom wall. Ooh, what's going on for Dean Flavel? The Dino's got a new livery. Fantastic. We'll take a look at that one later, no doubt. Reese DeGoey, 26th on the grid. Then Christian Smart in 27th is the first driver, a second removed from pole. 999 starts alongside Justin McLean, a little deeper in the field than we might have expected to see a driver who sits in the top 10 of our points. And then Matthew Stoyles in 29th, and Ricky Hyde is 30th.
Round out our field tonight, Shane Randell in 31st, Scott McKenzie in 32nd. Matt Brunt in 33rd and Simon Haynes in 34th. Tim Mulford 35th and Darren Goosey in 36th. Simon Hederscheid 37th and Alex Kiddis in 38th. And that's the field there, ladies and gentlemen. So 38 car field here for the 300 kilometre, almost enduro at this point at Fuji for these guys on a Thursday night.
Now, as far as Dean Flavel's car goes, everything I could see on it, the individual parts I could compute. As a whole, it wasn't making any sense to me. Keep an eye on that one. But again, starting with 80 litres of fuel, 2 compulsory pit stops, and an eye on the sky.
That's exactly it. So pretty standard setup in terms of how we expect the pit stops to roll out in this one, but the question mark will be over the weather. And with it being dynamic, we don't know if the rain will come. It's certainly it's looking a bit foggy and like the weather's hanging around here, but it'll be up to the iRacing weather gods whether we actually get that little spritz or not and make the lives of our 38 drivers here interesting tonight.
Well, it's headlights on because it's foggy as we're a minute from revving up the engines and getting away. Visibility is going to be tough around this place. There's what the conditions are now, but I'm doing my Englishman in the Battle of Britain impression because I'm watching the radar keenly, and there's something on the horizon. A blue streak is coming. There is visible rain upon the radar, and for Dean Flavel, okay, so it says Ichiban lipstick for men. There's blue lipstick kiss on the rear fender, and I don't know my sitcoms well enough to say off the top of my head who that is on the door.
I can tell you right now, it's Joey Tribbiani from Friends. When he was trying to get into the acting industry, I think he did ads for Ichiban lipstick for men. It made me giggle quite a bit when we're on the grid looking at that car. It's a great callback by Dino there.
Car alongside him doesn't have the engine on. We'll hopefully need to fire it up. Maybe just saving some fuel as they sit on the grid. There it goes, fires up. Yellow flashing light means no engine. Something we look for often. We're about to get underway. The championship leader, Wayne Walker, is on pole position, the grippy side of the racetrack, to head down towards turn 1 at Fuji Speedway and begin 300 kilometers of RaceKraft V8 Vets. And he does get a good getaway. Brian Borg not quite so well. Everyone on the left side of the grid should be the grippy side of the road, should bite up and launch away well. Ken Latta dropping back as Borg dives to the apex. Walker got in pretty deep to that turn 1 hairpin. A car park, or is it an orderly queue forming at the apex of turn 1? Walker leads away from Borg, who could have taken that lead away and is looking to in turn 3. Round the outside he goes and inside for the long turn 4 and 5. Borg is gunning for that race lead.
This is some pretty willing stuff early on in this one. Cold track, cold tyres, cold mines, and Borg, I think, is going to get it done here on Wayne Walker, and he will. He has taken the lead off our championship leader here at Fuji on lap 1 with some persistence and drive to get there. Brian Borg back to the front of the grid, and he will try to stay there. All looking fairly orderly behind at the moment, but we're looking now. Paul Young thinks he might have an opportunity there to try and squeeze by Wayne Walker as well. He's looking nice and close. Oh, we've got two cars come together in the background there.
Yeah, Logan Barnett.
Travis Hunt.
So it's flat out, but there's a couple of little kinks between that turn 6 hairpin and towards the turn 10 that they were going into. And those two drivers come together, but avoided the walls. We get into this climbing switchback that closes out the lap. Another place that you can be tempted to try to have a dive down the inside. But if you do, you're very compromised for the corner tightening and your exit being so critical off that final corner. Onto the front straight we go. Brian Borg leading 3/10 from Wayne Walker, 2/10 from Paul Young, and a gap emerges between 6th and 7th place with that contact that happened. This is content in a way of speaking. Braking at turn 1, Brian Borg leads.
Yeah, interesting move there from Paul Young. He actually got on the brakes a bit early to stay behind Wayne Walker. He had heaps of speed on him but didn't want to make the move happen, so it looks like there's already been a strategy at play here. Diving a bit further back into this pack, looking at Logan Barnett, who's just gotten past Luke Allman there. Live radar showing, just as you mentioned earlier, David, that little blue streak showing some rain is on the way. We don't quite know the severity of that and what's behind it just yet, but definitely something looking like it is brewing out there, and the forecast is certainly showing we've got something brewing with some fairly high percentages too. So these guys are going to have to battle on in the dry here for now, but very much with a mind to some wet racing later in this one.
Move here, so turn 10 proving an overtaking opportunity in this no chicanes variant. That looks like cans up a essentially Stone Street into 9th. Travis Hunt's gone from 6th on the grid back to 16th. Logan Barnett lost some spots with that contact we saw from them. Another driver who didn't get a great getaway, Christian Smart, was back 5. Kind of got boxed into the 3 wide at turn 1 and then down at turn 6 again. Found himself just a little on the wrong side of the road. That ball has picked his way through.
Travis Hunt down 10. Dean Flavel, we were just singing his praises about his livery, and he's down 10. And was reporting something to race control on lap 1 as well. So a couple of incidents coming in now from a couple of drivers, Reese Degoe being one of them as well. So a little bit to unpack here for race control early in this one, but everyone's still going. Dan Hall, definitely the class of the field in terms of positions gained in just 2 laps around Fuji at the moment. Justin McLean, Matt Stoyles, Ricky Hyde, and Scott McKenzie all making up some good positions. And Brad Doble on screen as well has made up some. So battles everywhere at the moment, David. It's hard to know where to look.
Got to look on the track, look in the sky. Here at Fuji Speedway, compulsory pit stop window is open, but whenever there's changeable conditions looming, I think drivers will just hold on and see what happens. And with 80 litres of starting fuel, they can do so for a number of laps and indeed a number of minutes. So they've got to make a decision on what their strategy is going to look like.
And Paul Young has just passed Wayne Walker for second place. So they're roaring down the front straight now, and that was at the last turn. I think Young has gotten it done on Wayne Walker, and Brian Borg is looking pretty susceptible to a move here. He was defending against Walker last lap into turn 1. Paul Young not afraid to use that boot into the accelerator pedal. He might try go for the switchback here, but Borg's going to hold him a little bit high and wide. Won't get it done down there at turn 1, so he's going to keep firing down towards turn 2 and 3. Won't be able to get anything done here. Wayne Walker not looking his usual speedy self, or is this a bit of self-preservation to just make it through what is we're at a very early part of this race.
Engine's dead for Brad Doble. The yellow light's flashing. The engine has gone. And that's in a tough spot too on the exit of turn 1. Massive braking zone, and sometimes we see drivers a little too eager to grab their downshifts, put too much revs through, and we go safety car for this stopped car on the outside of turn 1. Brian Borg leading from Paul Young and Wayne Walker. What do? The weather changes what the optimal strategy could be. If you take your first stop now, you're incredibly at the whim of what the weather does and doesn't do from here on out.
I think there is a mind to stop now and get your first compulsory pit stop out of the way. The only gamble in that is we don't 100% know when this rain is going to hit and how severe it's going to be. So can you make it to the critical lap number if you were to knock over your first compulsory stop now?
So this looks like most of the field coming in. They only started on 80 litres, so they can still fill in a lot more. A little bit of contact there. Second, third, Paul Young and Wayne Walker coming into the lane. Brian Borg attacking it a little bit more than Paul Young. Damien Cairns, John Gallen, Logan Barnett stay out. But this is sort of 2/3 of the field pitting, but not all of them.
So this is really interesting. So we are past that compulsory pit stop. We are, into the compulsory pit stop window. That opens on lap 2. So we've seen our leaders come in. Now, this seems like the smart play. As you tick one off now, with the rain logically coming, we can see some on the radar on its way. You're going to have to do that second stop potentially when it comes. But then there are some guys who've stayed out and gambled the track position of being back out there and trying to make it last as long as they can. So this is going to be interesting to watch and pan out as the night goes on. And we're just now watching Brian Borg has fired out there with a relatively short stop.
Luke Orman has put on wet tyres. Travis Hunt has put on wet tyres. Double check that, but the track is bone dry, but with rain coming, are they running an automated crew chief? Are they trying to anticipate the weather? Yeah, confirmation from ATVO and JRT that there are 5 cars on wet tyres. Luke Orman, Travis Hunt, Mark Poynton, Christian Smart and Phil Manuel. That is odd to me.
I don't think that's the play, because right now that blue streak is not that large and not that severe. So look, there might be more weather behind that, but if that is all that's coming at the moment, if you're on warmer, dry tyres, you can probably weather that storm for a few laps. I don't know if the wets are now these guys aren't seeing the radar, they're just seeing the forecast, but that is a risk.
So they've got a whole heap of information, but still making a decision that doesn't quite suit what the track looks like in front of them, because none of them will have seen spray on their windscreens just yet. And we sit in a whole bunch of different groups here. Cairns, Gallen, Barnett, Ray Smith, Dave Arney, Scott McKenzie, Matt Brunt stayed out. Behind them, Brian Borg, who took 23 seconds of fuel and new slick tyres. Behind that, Luke Allman on wets. Then, drivers like Paul Young, Ken Latta, Wayne Walker all took more fuel than Brian Borg did. They're just behind him in the train here, but with 6 seconds more fuel, I think Borg has taken the amount he would have in a green flag stop. The others have kind of got a brimmet here behind the safety car, don't I? And so that is why Luke Allman jumped them in the lane. But oddly, went to a different compound of tyre. Whole field behind the safety car at the moment. And paint me surprised if I've got any chance of knowing who's done the right thing here.
Look, to be a fly on the wall of each of the people who've gone on to wet tyres would be really interesting, because they might think they've got a master stroke here, but it's interesting. It's an interesting strategy. I don't know if it'll pay off. I'm particularly surprised by Luke Allman. He's in a really good spot in this race at the moment, and he's jumped Paul Young, Ladder and Walker, who were all ahead of him before this stop, but now, and before the safety car, but now he's going to be disadvantaged here, at least in the early parts of this stint, unless that rain hits sooner than we are expecting. But hey, you know what they always say, a bit of water throws some spice in the race. The water hasn't arrived yet, but the spice certainly has.
Now let me, a Queenslander, weather-splain this to you in terms you'll understand, Brock. Looking at that weather radar, that amount and intensity of rain is the type of rain where you step out of your office building, and if the tram stop is fewer than 2 blocks away, you don't even bother putting your umbrella up. You're like, I'll just take 3 spits of rain on my head. It's not worth the effort of putting the umbrella up and putting it back down when I jump on the tram. It is not heavy rain that I see on the radar.
Now I understand. See, this is why I love commentating with you, David. You know how to reach my brain and make it all make sense to me. So basically, these guys on dry tyres, at the moment, they've made the right decision. That's what I'm hearing.
If there's no rain beyond what we've seen on the radar, I'm looking at that going, it was never worth going to wet tyres. We're going to look at Brad Doble and what happened to his motor. Now, the whole thing is foggy, but that's a blacker smoke, and that's bad for Brad Doble, as he was battling side by side there. He's reached for a downshift too early, and his Ford V8 has let the magic smoke out. The safety car is in. Damien Cairns, who hasn't stopped, leads the pack. He's looking for the green flag. John Gallen and Logan Barnett behind him. We get underway. Your top 6, no pit stop. Brian Borg, 7th, on slicks with extra fuel. Allman, we're pretty sure we're going to see him on wets. That'll see him get absolutely swamped on this restart. And then behind that, Paul Young has a full tank of fuel and the right tyres. Strategically, in 9th, he might be in a really good spot. As we get racing, how quickly are they all going to work their way past Luke Allman? How quickly is that rain going to arrive?
And Allman's already dropped a position there to Paul Young, so we're already seeing that lack of grip on the wet tyre in the dry having an effect there. So he's being bullied a bit here. Ken Ladder's just gone around the outside of him as well. He just has nothing to offer at the moment. Wayne Bork will be the next one to make him a victim of being passed, and Allman, you can just see he's struggling. He can't put the car where he wants it to. Wayne Walker's going to cut down the inside here, and Allman at the moment, he just can't even turn the car back in. These wet tyres, funnily enough, are not made for dry racing, and he is dropping like a stone through this pack.
He's gone 4 corners and overheated them, and the fronts won't bite. He's missing straight line speed. Look at this, he goes to turn in and it just doesn't quite stick for him, so he is dropping. So too Travis Hunt, Mark Poynton, and it goes to show that the data was correct and not some kind of hallucination. Yeah, look at his brake lights in places that other people don't have to, because he just can't turn the car, can't stick it to a line, and whichever way he goes, they carve him up like Bree that's been on the bench for 2 hours. In fact, that's probably what his tyres feel like.
Look, yeah, well, that's exactly it. They're soft and mushy and not providing much grip, and you can see we're on board with him here on the Zoom wall. Probably this is one of those nights where he's regretting joining the Zoom wall. You can see he's not particularly happy and chatting with his team and what's going on. But yeah, there's still no more rain behind that band we were looking at originally. So he is in a world of pain at the moment and might consider pitting to get these dry tyres on when he can get the fuel in to get to the end of this one. But that's it's going to be a bit of pain for now as we're watching some battling going on here. Travis Hunt trying to work his way back through the pack after some earlier incidents.
It'd be funny if we weren't watching their souls leave their body, because for Luke Allman and Travis Hunt to get to the critical lap number to make their next and second pit stop to get off wet tyres to slicks, once we get to that point is about when the rain's going to start. So the earliest minimum loss opportunity to get off the wet tyres is when the rain is going to begin just lightly spitting. He is getting absolutely just mugged here. Just mobbed. They're lining up to get by him just like that one crossing in Tokyo.
That is for sure, and no one is being patient about it. They are just able to work their way through and make it happen. Mark Point and Christian Smart, two of our other wet tyre users in this stage of the race, and all falling, unfortunately. So it might
Chad
be
Lewis
that
and Simon Hederscheid get into each other in the final corner. They're going to both lose out some spots. Pretty sure that was Lewis, just ahead of Hederscheid.
Yeah, Hederscheid not too happy. He's reporting that one to race control, so clearly not happy with how that has unfolded for him in the position he's lost.
Pointing on wets just there. The Frog Leap juiced car. They're all looking down the inside of him. Randell and probably Dugowie. It's these medium speed corners that they seem to just absolutely lose out. So you get to sort of turn 4 and 5, and the guys on the correct tyres just carrying so much more speed inside, outside, whichever way it goes. On board with Christian Smart will tell us. So these are the ones I feel like it just doesn't do what you want.
And look how much steering angle he's having to put into that to get it to turn as well. Like, it's just, I reckon if you could hear the tyres screaming at him as well in the sim as he's doing that. So, you know what? You got to take risks. You got to try and try different strategies, see where it can get you. Unfortunately, I think for these guys, right now it hasn't worked. That's not to say later on it might not. Who knows if it does rain, how it's all going to pan out. But for the time being, not much to come from it. Damien Cairns has dropped from the lead of this one. So John Gallen is now out the front of this race with Logan Barnett behind. And there is an angry pack behind these guys. Damien Cairns' heart rate at 136. So it is humping as he is battling his way to stay on the podium at the moment, having not stopped just yet.
He's got Ray Smith just behind him, who's looking for the inside of turn 1, but not quite close enough. The driver in third negotiates that hairpin. Still hasn't made his first stop. It gives them flexibility looking at the weather. But I still think that Brian Borg and Ken Latta, Paul Young are the drivers in the best situation. We had last pit stop times on the screen, and the bigger that number, the more fuel they got on board, the less they're going to need to take their second stop, and also the further they can drive towards a window of knowing what the right tyre to be on is as they take their second stop.
Yeah, that's it. The strategy is certainly working in the favour of those who have stopped so far, because they are up a compulsory pit stop, and it gives them a lot of strategic freedom now with that full tank on board as well to race this race the way they want to. In saying that, the guys, John Gallen and Logan Barnett, are not sticking around. They're leaving Damien Cairns in their wake a bit here and trying to run away, which is exactly what they need to do. They need to try and get as much gap as they can on the guys who have pit to put themselves in a strong position come that first pit stop. So there's John Gallen we're looking at now, the leader of this race. He's firing about to lap a car up ahead there. Sorry, I didn't catch who that was, but all in all, at the moment, everything that Scott McKenzie... Oh, Scott McKenzie had a dropout earlier, so he is, unfortunately, due to his internet, dropped.
So everyone who switched to wet tyres has remained on wet tyres. Luke Allman has dropped from the top 10 to 27th and make that about to be 28th with Michael Stewart behind him. Travis Hunt down to 32nd, and Christian Smart, Phil Manuel and Scott McKenzie all have stayed on their wet tyres. And for comparison's sake, Luke Allman last lap, minute 44, our leaders in 39. So it's just every lap costing them about 5 seconds.
That's a lot of time to be giving up lap on lap, isn't it? And I mean, look at Luke Allman. This is someone who was fighting in that top 5 and doing really well, and now he's just languishing, falling further in this field. And these guys that are trying to get past him are really struggling because it's finding the spot and not causing an incident while you do it with a car that's going unnaturally slow.
Dave Arney, who was in the top 5, is now in the wall. So Dave Arney was battling with Cairns and others, and then Paul Young, Ken Latta, Brian Borg were coming up. Borg's dropped 2 spots, so Arney and Borg might have come together here. Paul Young's now the leading car on the strategy of those who've stopped. This is how Borg around the outside of turn 10. Oh, and then Paul Young the other side. And as Arney tries to give room to the right, he kind of comes across Brian Borg, who had stayed there the whole time on the left. We'll take another look. So Paul Young joins this. There's 2 drivers that had made their stop versus one that hadn't. Borg ahead on the left, remains there. Paul Young cuts to the inside, and
so I think there, Young might have gotten into Arney, which has pushed him wide, and that's forced Borg off the track a bit more. It might have been a touch there, and then Borg has lit it up and come back on the track. So there's a lot to unpack from that one.
And I think Arnie sped on pit entry as he's come to lane to take those repairs. So he'll be sitting, unfortunately, a long time. And it says he'll be sitting a long time while they put wets on that car. So, we are Darren Goosey and Reese DeGoey making a move away from everyone on wet tyres, dropping to the absolute tail of the field and having 0 track position based on the difference in speed in these conditions. Staying on those wet tyres on a dry track for as many as 4 laps costs you a whole pit stop. So there's very little to be gained by sticking with it. And that rain is so light and so short, and it's even disappearing as it gets closer.
Yeah, absolutely. It is getting smaller and smaller, and it is the lightest of light rain that it'll barely even constitute a wet track at that point, you know. So these guys on wet tyres, they have lost so much time, and now we'll pay the price, unfortunately. But we're going to talk about the guys on dry tyres that haven't pitted just yet, but are still battling out there. So that is Logan Barnett down the inside of Ray Smith for second on the road in this race at the moment. So Barnett not wasting any time, again trying to pull away from some of these guys behind him and make something of the strategic decision that they've made to stay out on track.
And they're now a whole pit stop ahead of everyone who pitted under safety car and took wets, so there's no disadvantage to them. I think they are at a sizable disadvantage to some of the cars immediately behind them that did stop under safety car. And I'd say Paul Young is our net race leader at the moment, having drew into that lead as Borg went off and Ken Latta also snuck through. Wayne Walker 2 cars back behind that. Dan Hall and Dean Logsdale completing our top 10 at the moment. Still before the window to be able to make your second stop. So think about. Dave Arney has changed to a set of wet tyres after that incident. I don't know what they're seeing. I really don't.
Do you feel like this is potentially they've tried to prepare themselves for a stop later in this race? So they've already pre-race, when they're sitting on the grid, they've set it as wet tyres, thinking that maybe their first stop is going to come during rain. And the safety car and other ensuing events for someone like Dave Arney, some drivers have forgotten to change that back to dry tyres, considering we weren't even near the rain. I reckon there's a little bit of that going on. It wasn't a strategic decision so much as oh man, I need a pit now because of the safety car. And unfortunately, they've left those wet tyres on and just had to deal with it.
The sunk cost fallacy is stacking up quickly. Like I said, they've gone to wet tyres on a dry track, immediately losing time, and then they've doubled down on it to not make it a 3-stop race, but they've already lost a pit stop's worth for drivers like Nick Allman, Travis Hunt, Mark Boynton, Christian Smart, Manuel, Mackenzie, and then surprised to see Dave Arney follow in those footsteps.
It'll be interesting to see how those guys come out of it. And with the radar currently not looking like there's any more rain behind this bar that we've been looking at, I think it'll just be a bit of a grin and bear it situation for whatever rain falls for the guys on dry tyres, but they should be able to make it work. So on board with Paul Young here, he's chasing down Damien Cairns, but Paul Young is the leader of our drivers that has pitted at the moment. So we would essentially call him the effective leader of this race, having that first compulsory pit stop under his belt. And has a cushion. It's not much of one. It's only about half a second back to Ken Latta, but it's there. And now looking to try and get past Damien Cairns, who hasn't pitted yet, and just put a car between himself and Ken Latta. We know Ken is a hard racer and he will fight tooth and nail for every position on track. So Paul Young, having had some battles with him out there this season, will know he needs to try and get away from him to preserve this strong position.
So, a couple of special liveries. Saw that Brian Borgs has been updated. See that Damien Cairns has got his sticker on the rear bumper, so that everyone coming up behind knows not to shove the birthday boy. He's gone to car number 200 as well. That's a very supercars thing to do. So the timing says 88, but it says 200 on the door, or in fact the glass.
Yeah, that's
Paul
a
Young
very
right behind him.
Very supercars thing to do there, to honour your a milestone like this, like your 200th round, with a change of race number. I'm sure the V8 Vets veterans, V8 Vets admins, would have been 100% behind the change here. And Damien Cairns, he's led the race. He's fighting up the front here at the moment with this different strategy, but Paul Young is looking to put him down another position here. I think Damien's just going to let this happen. He knows that he's on a different strategy to these guys. He's got himself a bit further up the grid, and Paul Young will make that happen and get past Damien Cairns. I don't think Ken Latta made it through with him. He didn't, but Ken is right on behind there on Cairns and will be wanting to get past him quick, smart, stick with his rival in Young.
Counting on my fingers and toes to try to work out how far away this rain is, and I think it's about 5 to 6 laps, but it is then only going to be about 5 laps worth of very light sprinkling rain. I don't think it will create any standing water on the track. I think it'll hit at that intensity, it'll hit the track, evaporate instantly, and then there's not enough to really make the track noticeably wet at all. Not enough to make the track 7 or 8 seconds slower per lap, which is what it would need to be for wet tyres to then be a quicker tyre.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, if we wanted to wanted to, but if you were going to see any sort of real impact and some standing water and actually getting a bit of spray behind the cars, you'd be wanting to see some sort of green teal in that cloud of rain to actually generate a bit of a real bit of wetness and moisture out there, which doesn't, in this batch, doesn't look like that's going to happen. So it's going to be a bit of a grit and bear it situation for these guys. The track will get a little bit slicker because that rain will still it'll make it a little bit slippery, but I don't think it's going to, once it's gone, the guys on dry tyres will continue to race this thing. And as you said, David, we will not be reaching the crossover for wets, I don't think.
While the track temp is slightly cooling off, it still remains hotter than ambient, so it's got a little bit of energy in it to evaporate water that lands on it. And at 23 degrees Celsius, like Darth Vader's heart at the end of episode 6, there's still just a little bit of warmth in it.
Just a little bit, though, just a little bit. He's waiting for his Skywalker to come along and warm him up a little bit more. Maybe that's what we'll see at the end of this one when the fog lifts and we get the happy ending. But for now, these guys are drenched in the fog at the moment and trying to see their way through. Paul Young's managed to step away a little bit from Damien Cairns. Ken Latta hasn't managed to get past Damien Cairns at the moment. So Damien doing a good job here, on board with Ken on the Zoom wall. So Ken is one of our regulars on the Zoom wall. We are used to seeing him here and love seeing the focus he brings when he's racing. So he won't be close enough to get a move done down into turn 1 of this run here. He is in the draft there, but he'll just have to sit behind and probably keeping half an eye on the mirror with Ryan Moore, who we know is a fast and full-on racer, right behind him.
You can tell it's gotten cold in Queensland. Ken's wearing a second shirt in his own home. Chilly. Oh, yeah. It might even be as cold as 17 degrees.
Mate, that's a nice autumn day down here in Melbourne. Wear shirts and shorts on a 17-degree day.
Spoiled and soft. And don't be too jealous. So he's still sitting behind. Kansas' car will be lighter, and we only raced 4 laps before that safety car came out, so the actual wear on the tyres not that much different. So it does make sense. Drivers like Cairns and Barnett can keep up, but when their pit stop comes around, they've still got a lot of fuel to take that Paul Young, Ken Latta, Wayne Walker and Dan Hall have already taken.
So we think, from a strategy point of view here, those that bring the tank have probably taken care of about half of their fuel load for tonight. And
if this is a pit stop to wet tyres, I'm going to scream. Damien Cairns comes in for his first stop of the race with a very, very light and short sprinkling of rain about 5 minutes away.
We're going to keep an eye on this because, personally, I kind of hope Damien does go into wet tyres so we can hear David Haynes scream. But this will be an interesting one. Now, Damien was expected to kind of come in around now anyway because that original fuel tank will run out. But the question is, does he stick on the dry tyres, or is the looming spritz of rain enough to make him go to wets as we wait tensely?
Well, he's got to take a lot of fuel, then he goes on to a new set of slick tyres. That's a good strategy.
Yep, I think that's the play. So he'll be on fresh, hopefully nice warm tyres when that sprinkle of rain that we're expecting hits. And that'll benefit him quite well because he won't be on warm tyres, he will be on new ones. So there might be a little bit of gain in this strategy for him now. Yes, he's dropped back a bit, but there will be some benefit in having the new tyres, potentially on a cooler, slightly damp track. But all in all, a good strategy play, I reckon.
see how it works out here, but it is often said that if you've got tyres with a little bit more meat on them, they keep their temperature a little better when you encounter that very, very lightly wet conditions, whereas the worn ones that are thin just don't hold their heat the same. Here's Paul Young having a look versus Ray Smith. Down the inside, Smith a tiny bit wide. Good exit from Ken Latter too, and it looks like two of them might sneak by. Logan Barnett, who was in front of them, has come into pit lane 1 lap later than Damien Cairns. John Gallant and Ray Smith stay out. There is Ray Smith.
On board with him on the Zoom wall, one of our attendees this season, which has been great to see him in there. So he's going to watch the two effective leaders in this race battling it out. Ken Latter has, now that Damien Cairns pitted, got right back up on the back of Paul Young and followed him through on Smith here. So I think Ken can smell a pretty good night coming up here, and it's just about getting that move done on Paul when he can get it done cleanly and not have any contact or any penalties. We've seen, unfortunately, Latter's been involved in a few race control incidents earlier in the season, but this one here will be calculated, get it done right, and make it happen, and then he'll be leading this thing, and without Wayne Walker breathing down his neck either. So this is actually a really cool point of view to look at for the different lines people take into the last turn to try and get the run they need on their opponent as well, with Young and Latter taking two very different lines to get speed through the final turn onto the front straight.
Smith looking down at a screen or a button box, hopefully selecting dry tyres. John Gallen, the only other driver that hasn't stopped yet in V8 Vets race. Matt Brunt. Okay, so 3. John Gallen, Ray Smith, and Matt Brunt as we come across about a third race distance. And on the zoomed radar, I can see the rain now, so that means it's only a lap or so away. There's the big wide radar. Here's the zoomed in one of the track, and you can see it on screen too. That sprinkle of rain is coming. It hasn't hit the track yet. That's wide in front of Brunt from Justin McLean.
Here we go, we've got some rain. That was a bit of rain on the camera there, not on this view here. There we go, there it is. So we have some droplets falling at Fuji at the moment. So this is going to be the most challenging part of this race so far, is a bit of rain. Just make this track just slippery enough that you can make a mistake. So these guys just need to be careful and try and keep their heads when this rain hits wholly across the whole circuit.
Gallen, who hasn't stopped. Behind him, Young, Latter, who have Ray Smith, who hasn't. Borg, who has. Walker, who has. And Dan Hall, who has. So you've got a top 5 that's about to emerge there. No rain on the pit straight yet, where we can measure it more accurately, but a few drivers are coming in the back of shot there. McLean in for his second stop. Matt Brunt in for his first. 1% is the rain intensity now on the pit straight. It really needs to get above 5 and needs to stay there for more than 5 to 10 minutes for this to become a track where the wet tyres will work and be worth the pit stop, because the track will dry up and you'll need to get off them and make a third stop presumably. So it really needs to get quite wet as Justin McLean and Matt Brunt go to wet tyres.
Everybody please put an F in chat for David Haynes' voice box this evening. I think there might be some screaming going on later on tonight, but yeah, interesting choice there. This is a slow moving cell of rain, but it just isn't falling hard enough to warrant going onto wet tyres, and that will likely warrant another pit stop to get dries on not long after.
Logan Barnett on slick tyres with the new fastest lap of the race as this very, very light sprinkle takes a bit of temperature out of the surface, but not enough to actually stand on the surface. Borg goes up as John Gallen comes in. So now Paul Young, Ken Latter and Brian Borg is our top three. You need that track temperature to reach the yellow line for any water to actually stay and not instantly evaporate in this light misting rain. Gallen, Smith are in. Wayne Sanderson in for a second time. I think he's probably going to follow the strategy of those that we have seen before, like Matt Run.
Oh, I don't know if I like it. Yeah.
And presumably his teammate Justin McLean, who is on first lap on the wet tyres. Gosh, I hope he's telling him, it's not worth it, bro.
Yeah, stick to the dries, because...
Everyone who's in the lane right now is going to wet tyres. Rain intensity remains at 1%. No standing water anywhere on track just yet.
Yeah, we're only in the beginning of this band at the moment, so this is going to be long-ish in the sense that it's a slow-moving but light rain band. With the amount of cars we've got going around, as you mentioned, that rain intensity not very high, David. You'd think you'd gamble on dry tyres, not wets at the moment. And even in some of the shots we're seeing here, we're not seeing very intense rainfall. I mean, this one right here, it's just not raining all that much. So, yeah, I think that's a bit of a case of, oh no, if you drop to hit my windscreen, I'm going to come in. But the dry tyre's the one to be on. We're seeing it in the lap times.
39.7 from Brian Borg on dry tyres. There in third place. No time drop off at all on this lap so far. Rain intensity moves up to 2% though. But again, at this light sprinkling, it's not the first drop of rain that you need to jump. You do need to wait 5 or 10 minutes for it to actually pool up in any serious amount, which it hasn't. And it won't, and it isn't quickly. So fastest lap in the dry, 39.4 right now for Paul Young, 40.1. And again, on wet tyres on this track, everyone on wet tyres is doing minute 45s. So still, you need more than half a second to drop off. You need 7 to 8, maybe 10 seconds to drop off. Brian Borg in third, runs wide, gets a slowdown out of turn 10. Cornered spin his Achilles heel a little bit. Wayne Walker, can he get back up onto a podium spot if Borg is slow through this section?
Yeah, look, if Borg keeps making those sorts of mistakes, Wayne Walker will absolutely eat him up. And Walker, we haven't seen him too much. He's just been kind of going about his business here, but expect him to find a bit of speed in this one as the race goes on. Because it's not like he can just sit and wait for the results to come to him. We know he's a hard battler. But as you mentioned, David, right now, well, actually, that's a good example of what the rain looks like from behind Brian Borg. So definitely, absolutely rain falling. The wiper is going, albeit only when he is behind Borg. When he's out from behind Borg, he doesn't need it on. So there, that does show that rain is not falling too hard. And their lap times are consistent more with the tyre drop-off we'll see across the course of a race than the actual rainfall on the circuit at the moment. So right now, Wayne Walker in behind Borg, just biding his time, seeing where he might be able to get a move done. Dan Hall waiting just behind Walker as well. You can see him looming in the mirror there at the top of Walker's screen, but certainly very busy and complex out there at the moment as we're just past the third of the way through this one.
Certainly looks a little mistier from Wayne Walker's perspective, but what he's got is all of the lap times there. I think he can see who's on wet tyres and how quickly or not quickly they're going. And you've just got to trust the number and go, oh, am I still lapping faster than a minute 44? Yes, then I'm still on the correct tyres.
Well, that's it. If you know that number, then you're good to go. So, and that's what this is why we haven't seen these leaders duck in and make any impulsive decisions or anything like that. Shout out to Tim Mulford. Great result so far. We've seen Tim do this a couple of times over the last couple of seasons where he just keeps plugging away. Often some weird strategies help him get there, but up in 13th at the moment, up 22 on where he started, and he has taken his first compulsory pit stop, with Simon Haynes following close behind, up 20 on where he started. So these guys are just plugging away together and working their way up towards the field and are just outside the top 10 as Chris Burridge is now in the lane.
Make me do it, Chris. Andrew Rushworth comes in as well. Mulford is going to come in. There's a group of drivers there that benefited from pitting under the safety car and staying on dry tyres, so they've moved ahead of everyone who went to wets. Paul Young at the lead completes a 141, so the pace has dropped from the 39s into the 40s into the 141s as the rain falls lightly and continuously. Chris Burridge goes to wet tyres. Fastest driver on track is Logan Barnett on dry tyres still. 3 seconds and some change faster than anyone on wets.
Yeah,
We're going to do a slick to wet comparison as well, just at the speeds that they're doing in these conditions at the moment. Ray Smith went to wet tyres 3 laps ago, and his last lap was 4.5 seconds slower than Paul Young, leading the way on slick tyres. Just behind Ray Smith is a bunch of other drivers on wets: McLean, Hunt, Gallen and Sanderson, and they're all doing this speed. Minute 44s, minute 45s as Paul Young is down to minute 42. Dean Logsdale a 41.8, but then comes into the lane. So the pace is dropping off for those on slick tyres at a rate of about half a second, 3/4 of a second a lap at the moment. And so we're still then 3 or 4 laps away from the wet tyres having any pace advantage, then more yet still for them to claw back what they lost and were losing. And I feel like by the time that happens, the rain will have stopped. We're about halfway through the rain event now. We're almost 2/3 of the way through the rain event now, so it's not that far away from stopping and there's nothing behind it. But we have a lot of drivers looking at these conditions, thinking the rain will persist and thinking it will come towards the wet tyres, but it was just always a foggy, misty, gloomy morning, and the presence of a few little sprinkles has tricked them into thinking that wet tyres will be quicker. Dean Logsdale goes likewise. So we're down to about 1/3 of the field still on slick tyres, but we're still slick tyres leading the way, slick tyres going quicker, extending their margins.
So we're still, like, as you were saying, David, the guys on the dry tyres, we're seeing that their times are dropping off, but not significantly enough. And comparing to Luke Ullman, who is on older wet tyres at the moment, there's still 5 seconds difference between, or just about 5 seconds difference between the two of those guys. Paul Young in the lead of the race and Luke Ullman in 21st on those older wet tyres. So just, you still want to be on dry tyres. They are still that tyre to be on. And that's being shown by the guys at the front of this field, all running them at the moment.
Rock, do you see any rain falling in these last 3 shots?
Just a little bit there. I've used the word a spritz, just a little bit there, but definitely not a lot.
No, it's getting lighter already, and it's so patchy that at half of the track, we don't even see it. So the top 10 slick tyres, everyone else wets. Just got to keep an eye on, say, the last 3 laps for the race leader Paul Young, because there is a deterioration, but a very slow deterioration. Someone's just gone a bit wide in the background there. Wayne Walker's trying to cut through some of these lapped cars, and while he's on slicks, and cars that have pitted to wets Hold on. Well, Wayne holds on to it. He's quicker, but it is getting a little harder to hold on to it.
Definitely some slides happening, particularly when they get out on the curbs. These sawtooth curves tend to hold a little bit of water, so... But keeping it cool, calm and collected here. These guys are doing well on their older dry tyres to just manage this.
Have to get another lap from Paul Young here. So we've gone from 41.1, 42.4, 42.7, 44.2. That is just about crossover. If you look at the radar, it's about to dry up again.
Yep, and they've just reached the critical lap for that second compulsory pit stop. So right now, if this rain were to dry up and they can keep going with the fuel they've got on board at the moment, that's the play for these guys up the front, is they can keep going, do their second compulsory pit stop, get back onto a fresh set of dry tyres once the track's back to proper dry conditions, and they'll be right. Whereas some of these other guys who have already done their second stop onto wet tyres, they're going to have to do a third stop to get back onto dry tyres with how the weather's looking at the moment.
Stone Street is putting wet tyres on the 044 in pit lane right now. So, I mean, look at the radar, it's about to stop raining. We are still slick tyres faster than anyone on wet tyres. There has been not a single lap where being on a wet tyre has been quicker. Borg with a 43.9. Quickest driver I can see on wet tyres. Is there anyone in the 45s now they've overheated their tyres? No. They've gone from doing 45s on a wet tyre to losing more time as they've overheated them. It's 46.5 maybe for Justin McLean. I can't see anyone quicker than that on wet tyres. It's still 2 seconds a lap slower than being on slicks.
This is the thing, is you said it, the way you described it to me perfectly about walking 2 blocks, you wouldn't even get the umbrella out for this level of rain if you're in Melbourne and trying to make the tram. And that's exactly what it's been. Yes, it's been a little bit more slippery. We've seen the guys struggle with that a little bit, but they've managed it really well. And now, geez, they are just about out the other side of this rain, so it will stop in the next 2 or 3 laps, I'd imagine. And then this track is going to dry up really quickly, and this top 9 on dry tyres are going to be in a great position here to come home in there to fight it out, for the top 9, because they're the ones who braved it through the rain and just tried to make it work. Randell has pitted now. Let's see what he decides to do, what tyres he puts on.
Well, we are reaching a point now, 25 laps since the safety car came out on lap 4, that some drivers might be running out of fuel and they need to pit there regardless. Maybe we'll see someone go for a new set of slick tyres. I don't know. Shane Randell still to be decided. Brian Borg, one of the next drivers that we're going to have to see stop because they run out of fuel. I mean, taking 23 seconds behind safety car. He's young. Latter and Borg so close. And here's Ken Latter in these tricky conditions looking for the race lead. They got a lap down car there alongside them, heading towards the final corner, 3 wide. Paul Young's just going to hold on. The slicks are still quicker. They are becoming more challenging. Ken Latter in these low grip conditions, proving that he's got a lot of pace. Brian Borg was quick the lap previous in 3rd, and the top 4 have closed up, heading past pit entry. None of them are looking for it. Rain intensity has dropped from 2 to 1%.
Yeah,
in fact,
as
I can see the end of
expected.
it on the zoomed radar. I can see the end of the rain.
And there you go. So these guys up the front of the field have toughed it out. Brian Borg going down the inside here of Ken Latter. So we have a battle for the lead of this one at the moment. So Young, Latter and Borg are all in this. And Borg, he's trying to get through and make something happen here on Latter to get up to Paul Young using the conditions as they are at the moment. Wayne Walker looming like a shark, just waiting to jump in there and make something happen should either of these guys up ahead of him make a mistake. This has given Paul Young just a little bit of breathing room here to get out ahead and focus on the race that he is running at the moment. But this is an excellent battle, and these conditions and some of the traffic has just brought these top 4 a little bit closer together.
38 drivers started this race, and only 8 of them haven't put on wet tyres at some point in this race. The 8 that have stayed on slicks are leading the race. Brian Borg has a little bit of a moment there at turn 10, his nemesis. Wayne Walker sits right behind him. The traffic for Paul Young and Ken Latta becoming ridiculous because they've made a pit stop they didn't need to. They're on a tyre that's not quick, and they are all about to go a lap down before the halfway point of this race. Paul Young cutting his way through that traffic. Rain has just about ceased. Still side by side here for that last podium spot between Borg and Walker, the only two drivers to have taken race wins this season in V8 Vets.
Yeah, Walker will
Ricardo's onto, they're going to split the traffic. Borg's gone to the other side. Wayne Walker stays to the left. One of the Frog Leap juiced cars in the middle. Brian Borg actually pits in. Has he seen the rain stopped? What's he going to do? You're on for a podium, Borgie. Don't throw it away. Hold your nerve.
Oh, I hope he puts dry tyres on, just because we have got some excellent battling going on out here, and I want this to continue post the pit stop cycle. So Borg has decided to come in, remembering that he did take on less fuel in his last stop, so he was a little bit earlier needing to come in there, and now that has let Wayne Walker freed him even to go and chase down the likes of Ken Latta and Paul Young up ahead here. But that rain, as you can see on the live radar, we are still seeing a little bit of sprinkle here on the screen, but as far as the radar is concerned, that's the worst of it gone, and we've just heard Borg has gone on to wet tyres. Oh my goodness.
Excuse me.
Yep.
The fastest car on track is Chad Lewis, 44.8 on slicks. As the water's come down and the slick tyre runners have lost about 4 to 5 seconds a lap, the wet tyre cars have also gotten slower. They've gone from doing 45s on a bone dry track to doing 47s in these slipperier conditions. So the pace drop off with a little bit of moisture has also slowed up the wet tyre runners. It hasn't become slippery enough to be lethal. The Borg has run off at turn 1 on his pit out, has to clear a slowdown, and we are down to just 7 drivers who stayed true to the slick tyres.
Yeah, he's not just gone off.
He's looking at the other driver coming down the straight. He's outbraked himself a little bit. He's missed turn 1. He's missed the runoff. I don't think it matters if the gravel is wet or dry. You don't have the right tyres for it, and that's cost him a little bit of time. He's made his second compulsory pit stop. With 34 laps to go, he is going to have to make a third pit stop.
There's no more rain on the horizon after this. The forecast is getting better, not worse, after that little band that we went through there. So these guys, that the number continues to dwindle of the cars that have stayed on that dry tyre. And now we have 7 cars of our 38 car field here tonight have stayed on the dry tyre, and will reap the benefits of that as far as the weather is concerned by the looks of it. Just holding on to it there. I say reap the benefits, but you got to keep it on the track to make sure you do.
Well, they've got a channel. They're in a Scott Pie. No, not that part. The part from Melbourne Friday at the Australian Grand Prix in those conditions where you just had to brave it on the slick tyres and see it to the end and keep the car on the track. It's 7/10 of a second for our race lead between Paul Young and Ken Latta. Called him Waka Flocka Ken a couple of rounds ago because he was going hard into paint. Well, now he'll be saying, rain, rain, go away. That's what all my haters say, Waka Flocka Ken, as he stayed on those slick tyres and is up in second place behind Paul Young, who's the fastest driver on the track, 3 seconds a lap faster than anyone on wet tyres.
Yeah, this dry tyre strategy for these guys. And can I just point out, the guys that have stayed out, so the top 6 are all running, their tyres are now 29 laps old, so this is an almighty stint from them. And effectively, with their fuel load the way it is, they're trying to make it so they split these last 2 stints fairly equally, I would imagine. So they've done a really good job managing it through the rain, through the traffic. I say that's how they've done it now as we watch on board with Ken Latta here working through more traffic, trying to stick with Paul Young. I have to say, this is probably one of the craziest races I've seen in terms of lapped cars who have pitted and dropped back and our leaders having to fight through traffic. This is really testing their skills in what are still some challenging conditions out there.
They're putting a lap on Ray Smith, who was once part of the top 10, pitted to wet tyres. Sure, he had to take quite a long stop there in that second compulsory pit stop. But he's now a lap down to those he was racing with, who stayed on the slick tyres. Paul Young just cutting his way through the traffic. A tough thing to do in these conditions because you're on slicks on a slightly damp track. You kind of need to get off the line in a couple of places to get through on this traffic, and that's where the lethality comes in on a damp track like this. The racing line has stayed practically dry, but there'll be a few little damper parts, and if you have to take your worn slick tyres out there, you'll lose all of your temperature. Dean Logsdale is coming in for a third stop. I think he's going to be the first person to take wets off, and therefore I'm almost going to guarantee he'll get a top 10.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. And the other thing to point out is that now the field has been lapped up to 13th position by our leaders in Paul Young and Ken Latta. So
Logsdale's taken a 9.9 second pit stop. That's held by the time it takes to change the 4 tyres. So he's just said, give me the slick tyres, they're going to be quicker. I'll make up that 40 seconds in about 5 laps. Dave Arney, unfortunately, with some technical issues, is going to have to get that fixed, and that will hurt him.
Yeah, I think you're right about Logsdale there. He is one of our first guys on the wet tyre to come in. He is our first to come in and get another dry tyre on the car. And to your point, David, that might be the masterstroke here, is that everyone else is trying to, really nut it out and work it out on those wet tyres and get to the end of this thing. And he's like, stuff it, I know I've got pace advantage, I'm going to make this thing work. Down in 25th at the moment, which is 16 down on where he started. That'll be a story to watch of where he ends up as this one goes on. So having a puff for confidence there, and now to see where he can work his way back through to.
Yeah, we'll see what new slicks can do in this track condition. Still over 30 cars circulating. Should be clearing water off the track now that the rain has ceased. And if Logsdale holds on to this, I'm sure he'll be on the radio to his teammate Wayne Sanderson quite quickly, and they'll also move on to slicks. A few other drivers have gone to slicks. Alex Kittis, Darren Goosey, Phil Manuel, and Christian Smart. So Matthew Stoyles on wets just there, Dean Logsdale on slicks. See what the difference is once we get to more of the corners. Luke Allman comes into the lane for his second pit stop. And Logsdale down in towards turn 1. Not a whole lot of confidence on the brakes, fair enough, but once we get to the longer, higher speed corners, I think he'll have a bit of an advantage. Logan Barnett comes into the lane for the third time, and I think we're seeing a lot of drivers move back to slicks now that the rain has started. The funny thing is that the condition of the track surface hasn't changed that much. Drivers on slicks are still doing 43s and 44s. It's all in their head. It's the visual of the drops on the windscreen, not the actual grip underneath them and the lap times that they've been reacting to.
Yeah, so hard to know when the right time is the right time, because you are relying on so many different data sources and seeing, like I said, lap times, or you're relying on the forecast, or just the visual cues of how much spray is there, how much rain is there falling. But you are quite right, the condition of the track isn't necessarily better. But in saying that, dry tyres were still the tyre to be on, despite the track condition being not brilliant. So guys like Logsdale and a couple of others we've seen, Pitt Borg is back in as well now with Stone Street and Burridge. They're coming in, putting those dry tyres on and making the best of a complex situation here. Speaking of a complex situation, we've got a 3-car battle for our lead at the moment. 5 or 6 tenths just about separating our top three, being Paul Young, Ken Ladder and Wayne Walker. Three names that are not unfamiliar to being up the front of this field, but Paul Young looking to create a new winner out of this season in round 8. Long way to go here, but he's managed to hold off Ken Ladder and Wayne Walker so far.
Well, a few drivers now that have made 3 stops to get back onto slick tyres, but our top 3 here, well, they pitted very early for their first CPS after lap 4 with the safety car that we had. That gives them 2 big stints to get home from there in this 300-kilometre race. They're about halfway now from where they stopped the first time and the end of the race. So if you split that evenly and you see this drying track and you want to get onto some new tyres, could be the time now. Paul Young, a bit of understeer into turn 10 just there. Ken Ladder gets way closer. Wayne Walker also within 1 second of the race lead. These slow bits where you've got to climb over the curb still look a little bit slippery. The rest of the track is looking just a tiny bit nicer. Look at Walker come from way wide around the final corner.
He did, and when you've got this many cars out on track as well, when that rain stops falling, it does help to clean up the track a little bit, particularly on the racing line. Although your point about off the racing line is one, David, that making passes will still be a little bit dodgy with a bit of dampness hanging around there. But these guys at the moment, no passes looking to be made, but they're certainly keeping each other honest and not letting anyone get away as we are rocketing towards their next pit stop here, their second compulsory pit stop for this top 3 we're looking at now. We have heard that these guys are probably about 7 or 8 laps away from needing to top up the tank, so they've still got a little bit left in there, but there might be a bit of strategy in getting onto a fresh dry tyre here and trying to undercut depending on the fuel load they've got, as Ricky Hyde, Matt Brunn and Matthew Stoyles come in as well as we watch our top 3.
Funny, we've now got about half the field that have made 3 pit stops. The first compulsory pit stop, then a second pit stop on a wets and a third pit stop on a dries. Here's Brian Borg, another driver who made that third pit stop very quickly back on a dries, recognised the mistake and corrected it quickly, and he's carving through cars on wet tyres. Shane Randell and Wayne Sanderson he's got past. Now he's already alongside Ray Smith, and he'll try to cross him back over and makes it look easy. Now he's got Simon Haynes and Andrew Rushworth, and already through turn 10, Rushworth doesn't have any front bite. Brian Borg's alongside him going into the next corner. We've been watching for 10 seconds. Brian Borg has made 2 moves. That's how much more grip the slick tyres have got. They are the correct tyre to have right now. So Brian Borg was 16th at the start of the lap. That's when the banner in his windshield, the display, updated. He's about to be 10th by the end of this one. So everyone you see behind him, Rushworth, Haynes, Smith, Randell, Sanderson, he's dispatched with all of them. Another car pitted, I think. A few more are going to have to still. So Brian Borg has made 2 pit stops in the long, slow pit lane of Fuji Speedway, but because he went quickly to the correct tyre, he's already cutting his way back through the field. And then the other driver who's going to be working their way up, Troy Stone Street, Chris Burridge, a few others there, as a bunch of cars come onto the pit lane, as it becomes clearly obvious how dry the racetrack is. Lap times have improved for the leaders. There was a time there where Paul Young was in the 44s. He's now back down to the 1-minute 42s. I think I can see the sun. I think the sun's shining.
Some would say I can see clearly now the rain has gone, and I think that is the case for a lot of our drivers here who are coming in and pitting and getting the dry tyres back on the car. They were struggling to see through the fog and the rain, and they went for what they thought was right, but unfortunately the iRacing weather forecast lied a bit in it. It said it was going to be 100% intensity, but 100% chance, of rain, but it did not show the intensity. It just was not that high. On board with Michael Stewart here, one of our favourite Zoom Wall attendees. We love to look at his map there, and I reckon, if I'm not mistaken, there is a little red dot up the top there that shows Fuji Speedway. Hainsey, you said it would be up there, and you are right.
The arrangement of the tracks kind of follows their geographic position relative to each other. So things that are in the top right of a world map centered on Europe will be in the top right of that. So there's a bunch of Asian tracks around that I see. Macau, Motegi, Autopolis, Shanghai, that's Fuji, and of course then just below it's a bunch of the Australian tracks that we know and love. Surfers Paradise, Adelaide, Mount Panorama, Bathurst, Albert Park. Symmons Plains is on that, no Queensland Raceway.
Couldn't go without the paperclip, surely. But no, good to have Michael back here. We love always checking in with him and seeing where he's put the little red dot. He always positions his camera to make sure that we can see where he's at there. And speaking of, on the wet tyre, unfortunately struggling and dropping back as Chris Burridge has forged past him at the moment. And again, one of our drivers is on the wet tyre, going a bit wide there as well. Just struggling to hold on to this thing before he comes into pit to get to the end of this one.
How's the lap time for Burridge? 1 minute 40.7. So we have so quickly gone from minute 45s to sort of minute 40 flats, and we could be back into the 39s before too long. Young, Latta and Walker haven't quite picked up the pace as quickly, but they are on some very aged tyres that have seen the world at this point. So, if one of these top three is the first to pit, could undercut on 35 lap old tyres for this top three. The track's dry enough that you can fire up a new set of slick tyres as well now.
That's it. There you go. So these guys are getting faster, and significantly so. Almost a second faster for Paul Young on lap 40 of this race, the previous lap. And Ken Latta not too far behind in terms of lap-on-lap speed there. So that really does ask the question, is an undercut worth having right now? So can one of these guys go in? Could Latta or Walker go in and get an undercut on the guys up ahead of him? And they'll be coming towards the end of their fuel window. So the time to do it is in the next couple of laps before Young takes that option away from them, pits for himself there. And he is controlling this field at the moment, doing really well, not making any mistakes, looking to try and take this win here. But there's still a bit of strategy to roll out before we can leave it all to on-track action.
Well, they can pit and not be in too much traffic because they're a lap clear of everyone up to 8th place. Brian Borg is off the lead lap until this group of drivers pits. Dean Flavel, who's on the same strategy as Young Latta and Walker, comes in. So he'll go from slicks to slicks. We'll see what the Dino Dino achieves today, because he's held to the strategy that I thought would be most productive.
Yeah, with his Ichiban livery.
You've got to lipstick to your guns.
So, speaking of lipsticking to your guns, we've only got 6 cars left on the lead lap at the moment. So 3 of those are just about in your shot right now, being Paul Young, Ken Latta and Wayne Walker. The other 3 are Dan Hall, Chad Lewis and Damien Cairns. We'll see a little bit of this change once the pit stops happen, but the reality is the pitting for wet tyres that we saw earlier in this one for a large chunk of the field has put them a pit stop behind our leaders at the moment. That will mean that we'll probably finish this one with a lot of people a lap down, provided we don't have another safety car.
Now, this remaining pit stop for the leaders, though, will be very long. It will match kind of what Dean Flavel just did, which was 1 minute and 10 seconds of pit lane transit time. Where the lap times are 1 minute 40, Brian Borg runs a tiny bit wide. He's trying to clear a slowdown, so he might have made a meal of turn 1 once again. He's still got it. Ouch, that's why Brian Borg is so far offline and slow there. He has cut a lot of the track somewhere. Flavel and Stone Street.
Look at these guys here out on track, Flavel and Stone Street. Battle for position on track at the moment. Both these guys are lapped down at the moment, but as you said, David, with the long pit stop time expected for our leaders, we're expected to see a bit of change there as Paul Young has come into the pits. So Ladder and Walker stay out, but Young is in.
Pulls the trigger. And I think if you're watching the lap times, the fastest car on track has consistently been cars that have gone to new slicks. Brad Doble in 35th on new slicks, one of the first drivers back into the minute 39s after much delay and disruption and incorrect tyre calls. So there was a lot of time they were leaving out there on the table. An undercut could be pretty powerful. On out, new slicks firing up. It says wets for Paul Young. Why does it say wets for Paul Young? This is a mistake.
Paul, no.
Still time to change it back. Still time to change it back, Paul.
On board with Young here on the zoom wall. He's got back up on the jacks there. So he's realised the mistake. It is a critical one in terms of trying to get the win in this race here, but he hasn't gone out on wet tyres. He's taken the extra few seconds there to get the dries on and gotten back out. That is good thinking on the run, because if he'd gone out on the wet tyres, it's another 30 seconds he's got to run down pit lane. No, he's gotten them on and only wasted a few seconds. Good heads-up thinking from Paul Young. Despite a bit of time lost, it could have been a lot worse there, but that is just diabolical when his two competitors in Ladder and Walker are both pitting now as well.
Still fourth. So, yeah, Ladder and Walker come in. Dan Hall probably following them from third. The car in front is a lap down to Paul Young. So Young still could get a podium here, but that undercut to try to take the race lead has gone away from him, as the team didn't put the right tyres on. Ladder and Walker, hopefully it goes better for them. 39 laps since their last pit stop. Now with about 24 or 23 to go. It'll be a much shorter run home in much clearer conditions. Tyres look okay for Walker and Ladder, but they're still going to need to take about 30 seconds of fuel, which they're only a third of the way into.
Yep, and Dan Hall has come in behind them as well to get his service. So this will be interesting to see where Paul Young drops out with these guys. I'd expect the fuel stops to be pretty similar between them all. Waiting and watching here to see he's going to drop. Ladder's drop first, and there we go. So he will make sure he stays ahead of Walker, just about coming out at about the same rate they were on the way in. So bit of traffic to deal with, not too much. Paul Young coming down the front straight now, but has definitely relinquished that lead as we would have expected.
We are down to just 6 drivers who never sullied themselves with a set of treaded tyres on a track that didn't call for it. And then a mistake in the pit stop for Paul Young, maybe I should count him to that as well, has cost him an extra 10 seconds and a little bit more in the lane. Dan Hall overcuts him with a perfect stop into third place. Ken Ladder and Wayne Walker, though, only half a second apart. So in a race where after all of the compulsory pit stops, only 6 drivers, it seems, are on the lead lap. That might clear up a little bit on the out lap here for Ladder and Walker, but the field spread has been insane. Pace differences have been ridiculous. Many drivers have had to take 3 pit stops in a race with only 2 compulsory pit stops. It's only 0.3 of a second between our leaders, Ladder and Walker, after their pit stop. We'll see what kind of a lap time they can lay down. They should be outrageously quick in these drier conditions with new tyres.
Yep, I'd imagine so. The track will be nice and clean here. I think we're going to have a mano-a-mano fight to the end of this one. So lapped cars getting out of the way, which is really good to see there, and just letting these guys fight it out. Wayne Walker is looking really racy at the moment. Dan Hall behind, though, well, you know what? He has kept it clean this race. He's up 10 on where he started, and now he is just potentially collecting a podium, although I won't say that definitively yet, with 23 laps left to go here, because Paul Young just did the fastest lap of the race, and I reckon he might want to reclaim this podium position. If he keeps doing that lap on lap, he's going to get there to Dan Hall before the end of this thing. So keep an eye on that. Look a little bit further back in the field at the moment at Alex Kiddis in 20th position. He's up 21 positions at the moment and heading up the battle for 20th. Really good effort by him tonight. And looking at fairly strong on dry tyres to the end of this one, as some of that sun does just start to poke through and that fog is starting to clear.
Yeah, we also started in quite the early morning, so the sun's also been rising and peeking through a few more of the clouds. 9:35 a.m. now, 27-degree track temperature climbing as we go. Officially mostly cloudy from overcast, but yeah, some power in that sun. First flying lap about to be completed with Ken Latta and Wayne Walker post their pit stop. Can we go lower than a 38.695 from Latta and the championship leader? No. We can from Dan Hall.
Dan Hall.
All right.
I take it back. I was thinking Young is hunting Dan. Dan is fighting back. Mr. Hall has got some pace under there and he wants to use it. He is letting the pony run at the moment and making sure that Paul Young is not catching him. So Hall reckons he's on to a good thing here. And last lap, Young has actually fallen off by 4/10. So great to see.
There'll be a bit of traffic though now for Dan Hall as he comes towards turn 6. Track's very wide on the way in there, but he's not close enough. Very straight drive off the exit. These guys know they're a lap down to him, and it's with compulsory pit stops completed for everyone. So Greg Sharp around the outside just lets Dan Hall go up into third. All a little bit slower through the first sector, but gains a tiny bit in sector 2, which is where Dan Hall might have had to have taken a different line through turn 6 in the second sector. Sector 1's actually very short here at Fuji. It's basically the front straight and turn 1. So you can almost see your whole top 4 heading down the straight. It is a long straight here at Fuji. Ken Latta still has Wayne Walker just behind. Dan Hall, decent turn of pace. Now he's on a new set of slick tyres. Paul Young ruining the pit stop mistake that may have cost him a podium. Hey, do you think Paul Young would be leading this race by 2 seconds without that pit stop mistake?
I think so. Yeah, and I think Paul had the pace to back it up too. We saw that in those difficult conditions. He got himself there as well after that first pit stop in the safety car. So I personally think that without that mistake, whatever happened there, with being on the wet tyre and then to the dry tyre, he would have absolutely been out the front of this one. And now he's trying to chase down Dan Hall. But Dan Hall, I gotta say, he was half a second faster again on that lap, and that was with traffic too. So he is doing a great job to try and maintain that podium.
It's Rushworth and Sharp in 15th and 16th. We were looking at the Alex Kiddis battle of around 20th place, but that's spread out a little bit as they've gone on. Just begun to drop Darren Goosey there. And for Rushworth and Sharp, very similar strategies. They pitted 1 lap apart to go onto wet tyres. They pitted on the same lap 8 laps ago to go onto slicks. They've both made 3 stops in this race. So you've got, there's their very, very similar strategies. Lap 4 stop for fuel and slick tyres. Lap 25, 26 stop for wet tyres. Lap 37, the track dried up and they went back to slicks. You can see positions gained on the timing column, and you see plus 10 for Dan Hall, but you see Wayne Walker taking the lead of the race away from Ken Latta. Latta, no wins yet this season. It's either been Brian Borg or Wayne Walker. Walker moves ahead. I'm pointing out, Dan Hall plus 10 spots, Chad Lewis plus 16. Those ERT guys, no, it's got to be a little bit wetter than that for wet tyres to work. Both of them stayed on slicks the whole time. and have gone from mid-pack to top 5. And in Dan Hall's case, closing in on the leaders again as they've battled, and Walker has wrestled the lead from Latta. We can look at the intensity from both of them.
Yeah, you know what, Ken will be disappointed with that one, but it was a clean move by Wayne. Wayne, jeez, he has been the standout this season, and in the last couple of seasons been building and building, and this is his time to show the pace he's got. And it was just, I wasn't expecting a move there down at turn 1, and then he did make it happen. So well done there, and Ken not dropping off too much. So if he can just collect himself, get back into a good rhythm here, he might be able to get back up on the back of Walker. Earlier in this race, he seemed to have a similar, or maybe even a bit of a pace advantage over Wayne. So just get back into it. We've still got 20 laps to go here, or nearly 19 laps to go, sorry, and just got to try and get into it. You can see Ken's getting a bit frustrated there on the zoom wall. Just take a breath and see if you can put in a couple of good laps to get back onto the back of Walker.
Well, not only is he wiping the sweat, he's taken off the overshirt, so that's how you know the sun's come out, the track's dried up, and Incy Wincy Spider can climb up the spout again, because somewhere in the middle of this race, Ken Latta has felt the heat and felt the need to get the guns out too. Walker is absolutely leaving him for dust here. Is Latta short on fuel?
That could be it. That'd make sense why there'd be a bit of a drop-off. Because...
And there comes Dan Hall. Look at that last lap. 7/10. 3 laps in a row. Dan Hall is charging.
And that is... So the big one will be here, potentially into the last turn, and then also turn 1 will be where we might hear the biggest lift if he is fuel saving. It would make sense why there's been such a dip in his times, because he's been fairly consistent all night long. And that's a lot that he's lost on his best time here. So have a listen to the last turn.
His furrowed brow also coincided with having a little bit of a chat on the radio and looking down at various of his other screens. So I think he saw a fuel number that he didn't like. As the track's dried off, they're spending more time at full throttle. They're definitely burning a lot more fuel putting down these minute 39s than they were putting down minute 44s and being so gentle with the throttle through the long sequences of corners. And it is fuel saving for Ken Latta is the concern, and where his pace is going. Dan Hall, though, only 3/10 quicker. And so I stand by my theory that the changing conditions have changed the fuel burn, and there might have been a miscalculation here from Ken.
Yeah, I think you're bang on there, and that's why it was so easy for Wayne to slide past him at turn 1 a couple of laps ago, is that he was already saving fuel at that point and not braking as late, and Wayne took the opportunity, and look how much he's been able to skip away there. So unfortunately it is difficult, and he's just I think popped the clutch in again there. He's really, he is trying hard here, and it just shows there's so many points of the circuit that he is trying to save fuel that it might be difficult for him to make this happen. And all the while he's using that time to Wayne Walker, Dan Hall is hunting him down at the moment, clearly not having any fuel issues, and trying to see if he can make his night one step even better on what it already is.
There's the look. Second and third are now closer than first and second. That's what's happening for Ken Latta. And a 39.7 last lap crosses the line, becomes a 40.2. Dan Hall stays in the 39s, takes half a second out. We're right on board with the driver in third place. Hall had a tiny bit longer stop than Latta. Latta and Walker were pretty similar.
On that last lap, I was on board with Ken there listening. He had about 100 metre clutch coasts there into turn 1 before he lifted it out and started braking. And what that's doing as well is it's actually putting out his braking distances. So he's run a bit wide at turn 1, 2, trying to clutch and coast there. So it's probably slowing him down a bit in that he's not carrying as much speed, but also it's putting off his braking markers. All the while Dan Hall, already 6/10 at this point of the lap, has caught up to him. So even if Dan's trying to save a bit, it does not sound like it's as much as Ken. So this, in about a lap or a lap and a half, is going to turn into an outright battle for second place here. All the while, Paul Young is dropping back as well off these guys. So it looks like it's going to be an all-out fight for second and third. And Wayne Walker is starting to run away a bit with this one.
Dan Hall can see a target. He can see second place. And I put to you, based on Paul Young's pace, he's actually in a similar hole to Ken Latta. So it might be Walker and Hall that have the right amount of fuel. Paul Young's gone from 7 seconds behind the race lead to about 11. What are we going to get heading down in towards turn 1, riding on board with second place. The gap about to come underneath. 1 second. Look at Paul Young. Ahead of him is that Rushworth Sharp battle.
They were in no rush to sharpen that one out, but they've done the right thing here and let Paul Young through as one of the leaders of this race here with the blue flag. So, well, Greg Sharp has, expect Rushworth to do that as well there. But just looking at these fuel numbers here, it looks like, well, as you were saying, Young might be in a similar position to Latta.
That might have been how he got such a quick stop, but then had to add 10 seconds to it to change the tyres around. There's Wayne Sanderson joining Andrew Rushworth and Greg Sharp just there. And how the track has changed over 300 kilometres, from misty and cool to a little bit of rain to the clouds clearing and the track temperature rising to nearly 35 Celsius.
And these guys out there will be absolutely feeling that at the moment, because they would have been used to, when they were on dry tyres at the start of the race, they would have been used to awesome grip in the car. When they were in the middle of the race, they would have been used to not all that much grip with the rain, and now it's going to feel just as muddy as what it was. And Dan Hall down the inside of Ken Latta, so Ken Latta saving that fuel. Dan Hall will go down the inside for second place here and continue his charge up the field, plus 11 on where he started, and now will clear Latta. So that extra bit of time with the pit stop to save that fuel, he will take that position and currently still has the fastest lap of this race.
With the track temperature warming and the tyres beginning to wear for everyone, there was like a little golden opportunity there just as the track got dry, but before it got hot, to lay down some really quick lap times, the quickest of which was 1:38.557 from Dan Hall. His average over the last 3 or 4 laps has been quicker than Ken Latta, but not as quick as Wayne Walker, who's now out to a more than 4-second race lead. Mr. Unstoppable this season in RaceKraft V8 Vets. It's Wayne Walker, and he spent quite a long time in this race not leading it. But he stayed to the right strategy. He put enough fuel in, we think. And now he's extending a lead a little bit after we had 4 drivers so close for the lead in those changeable and tricky conditions. Walker, Latta, Young, Borg, and now Latta a little bit short on fuel. Borg, the wrong tyres. And Paul Young, a long pit stop with the wrong tyres. They all drop away from Wayne Walker, who now has a more than 4-second lead.
Yep, Wayne Walker doing, well, what Wayne Walker does. And he just, once he got out to the lead there, he has just eked it out. So he just, I was a little bit, I was thinking maybe do we get a new winner here tonight? But Wayne Walker, as always, cool, calm and collected, and he has managed to grab the lead and is running with it. battle for 20 is still going on at the moment. Alex Kiddis, who we had a look at earlier and is up 21 on where he started, is holding off this sort of pack behind him that he's got with Michael Stewart, Matthew Stoyles, Ray Smith, and John Gallant. And doing well at it at the moment. So Kiddis probably started a bit lower than where we expected, but we've seen him show some good fight in previous weeks. Michael Stewart back from a bit of a hiatus from the V8 Vets, and unfortunately caught out with some of those strategy inconsistencies throughout the field with that rain in the middle of the race, and trying to work his way back through at the moment. Up 3 on where he started 2, and looking pretty racy here. I reckon we could see Stewart have a go at Kiddis before the end of this one. And almost, we're nearly within about 13 laps at the end of this thing. So, speaking of, Stewart has just gotten to the back of Kiddis there. He's going to roll out of it to allow Kiddis to get himself sorted. But what that's done is that's brought Stoyles straight into this here, while they've gotten balked. So Stoyles is going to go around the outside here at the penultimate corner. He's going to get caught up on the curb and the marbles and drop back off there. And now Gallant and Smith are going at it into the last turn. So this has caused chaos here, that little bump that Stewart has given Kiddis. And it looks like it's all sorted itself out. But these guys were, on the marbles, up on the curbs, nearly jumping up on the sausage curbs there. Now heading down to the turn 1, Stewart might try to throw another move down the inside. He's certainly got a bit of pace here. He's going to look at it, he's going to try it. No, a little bit too far back at the moment, but Stewart is not happy with 21st. He wants 20th.
Now, Ray Smith had a scruffy lap a couple back, and I think that might have cost him some spots in this group. So he's trying to come back through amongst it with Kiddis leading, Stewart, Stoyles, Gallant, who only made 2 stops in this race. Ray Smith also with 2, but a little extended stint in the middle on the wrong tyres. I'm going to hang up this job and become like a meteorologist or something. So if you want my private opinion on weather conditions, I'll be offering that as a consultancy service.
Don't you worry, Hainsey, I'll be calling you because some of the weather consultancy services I use right now are very inaccurate for Melbourne, and you know what? You've called this one to perfection. So keep your phone off silent because I'll be giving you a buzz.
Oh, David, the tram stop's 3 blocks away. Should I put my umbrella up or not? Let me look. No, don't worry about it. Don't waste your time with an unnecessary umbrella stop.
Hey, in the interest of efficiency, those are seconds lost in a day that you don't have to lose. So it's an important question to ask.
Down the front straight, could be some other drivers here just a little worried about their fuel numbers, as consumption will have gone up on a drying, quicker track with more grip. Here comes a look from Michael Stewart. Not close enough to Alex Kiddis, unless he can bait Kiddis into making a mistake in his massive turn 1 braking zone. Doesn't look like it. Looks like Stoyles gets a little bit closer to Stewart, working their way through the first hairpin on the lap.
There's not much changing here, but there's a lot of activity in this pack here. These guys are looking very strong. They're looking to make some moves, but nothing happening at the moment. We did see Stewart get to the back of Kiddis last lap, but nothing came of that. Tim Mulford in the pits at the moment, coming in for a service. Stop number 3 there, so that'll definitely put him out of contention here. And watching John Gallant here. John Gallant, who we did see in the lead of this race earlier, by the way, when he hadn't pitted earlier on, and with the strategy and the way it's all rolled out here, has unfortunately fallen way back in the pack. But he had to give it a go, didn't he? With the weather the way it was, the risk of a lot of rain falling, he had to try and stay out there. But now back battling for 22nd and 23rd at the moment in this battle pack with Alex Kiddis.
Manuel and Goosey, 25th and 26th, heading down the front straight. 2 stops for Manuel, but 29 laps on the wet tyres. They're losing about 5 seconds a lap, so you multiply A by B, and that'll tell you how much C cost him, whereas Goosey's made 3 stops, but only spent 5 laps on the wet tyres, and now is closing in, it seems, on the last lap. I mean, on the most recent lap, there's still 10 to go. I didn't mean last lap like last lap, I meant like most recent lap.
Don't strip them of their laps, mate. This is a race I look forward to all season, a 300-kilometre one. And if evidence shows anything, these guys are absolutely rooted after 300 kilometres of racing these supercars without a break. You know, their breaks are their pit stops, and they are not that long. So don't let anyone mistake the physical and mental exertion that goes into doing 300 kilometres of supercars racing on a Thursday night. These blokes, they put in the effort, they make it happen. So I'm sure they would happily take the 10 laps off the top of this one, but they still have to make it to the end and do their 300 kilometres they've committed to tonight in round A.
Manuel coming into the final corner, put a couple more car lengths between himself and Goosey behind. They stay pretty close ahead of him, and behind him, Luke Allman and Christian Smart. 2 of the drivers that went to wet tyres on lap 4 when the rain was still 20 minutes away, and it cost them a lot. They are a lap and about 40 seconds off the lead. 2 drivers that we could have seen contending for the top 10. Looks like behind Chad Lewis, who's up in 5th.
And that's it, is these guys, both of them, if the strategy had worked out better for them, or the choices were a bit better, we would absolutely be used to seeing them.
Dino, he's blown the motor from 11th place. Or has he picked up damage? Has he worn out down a tyre? What's he done? The car's rolling, but it has a meatball flag.
The car looks alright, doesn't it? No smoke out the rear either.
Done. He pulls aside out of the final corner.
He's going to go into the pits here and get a service done for the damage. But yeah, what has he done to get that meatball? That's the question.
Is it going to be the turn 10 curb or something? Looking at turn 10, Dean Flavel. I think he's done part of the undertrade, cutting turn 10, right? So we're going to see something else. He's cut turn 10 a little more than others, and he might have just hit something on the sausage curb.
That's got to be it, because the exterior of the car that we can see looks fine. But he did cut that very heavily.
Porsche Cup style, has he got too much curb, radiator, water pressure type of issue potentially? Stewart has been battling with Alex Kiddis. Stewart got down the inside, ran wide, has a slowdown. Kiddis back into 19th. Michael Stewart had a good go at it, and it seems Ray Smith has picked off a spot or 2 here now.
Stoyle's fighting hard here. Is this battle pack ever delivering content as John Gallen fires it down the inside there?
2 in a lap for Stewart, a slowdown again. Has he cut turn 10? I was watching everyone's lines through turn 10, just following what we said earlier. No damage for Stewart, but some time lost. Ray Smith now all over him, having moved past 2.
this is giving Alex Kittis just a bit of that breathing room he needs to try and make it to the end of this one and secure that 20th place. But behind him, it is on for young and old at the moment. John Gallen in the draft here of Stoyles, trying to make something happen down in the turn 1. He's going to give it a red-hot crack here. He's gotten onto the brakes a bit later here. He will fire it in. He's a bit wide. He's going to hold up Stoyles at the apex, but he might actually get this done. Stoyles looked like he might have gotten the run there, but Gallen has secured that one. So Ray Smith will be the next driver in his sights. I thought he might have overcooked it, but he ran it perfectly to get that move done.
Yeah, in hot enough, but not so hot that he went so deep that immediately got crossed over. Just stayed about that half a car width wide of the apex, held on to the spot. Greg Sharp ahead of Andrew Rushworth, Wayne Sanderson and Logan Barnett flying along to close them down. There's Greg Sharp. It's a homage to Japanese writing that can be written top to bottom instead of left to right.
As you said a few rounds ago, his earthquake-affected cam there. Glad to hear it was fixed for last round, but now I liked it when you said he'll be racing an uphill battle tonight, Mr. Greg Sharp. And you know what? He qualified really well. It wasn't too much of an uphill battle for him in the end, and he's up 4 on where he started. So actually a strong performance from Greg tonight to be in 14th, and not too much longer in this one to go that he's got to battle with to try and make it to the end.
Anderson with Barnett closing again 2 laps in a row. Just getting a little bit closer. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Wayne Sanderson's moving around what's on the walls every week. So that's Arctic Monkeys for sure. That looks like a Michael Jackson. But I'm going to need a... Oh yeah, that switch to tell you Pink Floyd.
Pink Floyd, yeah.
Is that... Oh gosh, I can't quite
is
pick
it Lionel Richie or... Can't quite tell the third from the right there. You bang on about Pink Floyd and Arctic Monkeys. I can't quite get the feel on that third from the right though. Fun game we're playing though. I wonder if Wayne's clocked onto the fact that we're checking out his wall art week in and week out and likes to switch it around to keep us interested and play the guessing game.
Yeah, either that or he just changes them weekly by habit. So that must be, it's probably written on the fridge Thursday. Change tablecloth, change bed sheets, change album artwork.
It's all part of the weekly chores to get done for old Sando, and then he comes and enjoys a relatively stress-free night of V8 Vets racing. And as I say that, he is trying to go around Andrew Rushworth for 15th in this one, which probably isn't as stress-free as what he would have hoped in this race, but he continues to battle here side by side. Won't get it done at the moment, but we'll stay right there with him and see if something can be done here through these sort of medium to high speed corners. Can he get a run and make something happen? Not much time left in this race. Wayne down 9 positions on where he started, looking to try and make that 8 positions down on where he started. And Rushworth trying to stay up 4 here in what's been a good race for him.
You get a couple of little kinks that are called 7, 8 and 9 before you approach turn 10. Right here. Oh, that's very wide. Massive understeer from both of them. Sanderson follows Rushworth in. Logan Barnett's crawling all over the both of them, but now out in the marbles for Rushworth. He's going to lose out big time. Barnett gets a cheeky one. He looks for another one, but Sanderson covers off the inside. 2 corners in a row here that start wide and tighten late and really tempt the driver behind to have a dive, really force the driver in front to cover it off. But then if they tighten late, the exit is so critical. Ball and Latter behind our race leader. Has Latter saved enough? Does Dan Hall realise he's got to do some saving?
we're looking here, Ladder coming back now. At Dan Hall, we thought this was said and done, and it certainly just about is for the win of this one, but Dan Hall has put in the fast lap of the race. Now the track temp has come up, the tyres are going down and losing that grip, but Ken Ladder, he's saved enough fuel. He might have saved his tyres a bit by saving the fuel, and now he's come back with a vengeance. He wants to take this second place back. The wind slipped from his grasp when Wayne Walker got past him when he had to save that fuel, but he can certainly still have a very strong result tonight, and an even stronger one if he can get past Dan Hall. So we're watching from the back of Dan Hall at the moment, looking back at Ken and seeing what he can make happen as we come through the final sector of this circuit. Nothing to be done here, but if you can get a good run onto the front straight, maybe, just maybe, there's something to be done down to the turn one.
Seeing their pace relative to lap down Ricky Hyde, 12th, who's just behind them, so he's sticking with Hall and Latter. And we'll get back across the start-finish line onto lap 64. 4 laps to go of Fuji Speedway with the chicane deleted. Super long front straight, past 250 k's an hour. But still some saving, not quite reaching the peak speed we've seen of 285 for these drivers. Just a bit of saving.
Isn't it interesting that Ken's managed to bring that back in even with a little bit of saving there? So that does say that Dan Hall is probably doing a bit of saving himself and trying to protect the tyres there. John Gallen slow at the start of the front straight here, out of the last turn. Not quite sure what's going on there. We'll have a look at the replay here. There's Dylan brought in that battle pack for 20th. He's gone nice and wide there. Oh, and he's gassed it up on the AstroTurf there and on the sausage curbs and managed to keep it out of the wall, pluck it in reverse and keep going. But with that pack behind him, he has unfortunately lost out on the few positions there.
Yeah, got a bit wide. Not too far behind a top 10 of Damien Cairns. Oh, that number's wrong. Why is that number wrong? Is it because they're both a lap down? No, not quite a lap down yet. Looking the wrong way at the track to try to judge the difference between 10th and 11th, because one of them's on the lead lap, one's not. Justin McLean. Now, if only we had this camera view for Ken Latter, we'd know a lot. We can watch McLean in 11th.
Always good to check in on our resident pedal cam driver here in Justin McLean. We do have John Latham sometimes pop him up with the pedal cam, but Justin this season has been our reliable source of pedal cam footage for season 27, and he has been making sure we see just how difficult it is to drive these cars with the heel toe maneuver as well, to get that blip in the clutch in as well, and just how precise you've got to be on the accelerator to get the most out of these cars without the slide, without overcooking it a bit like John Gallen did last lap. It's really an interesting watch.
You don't want to overcook it in a land of raw fish.
I don't think that'd be very appreciated. No, not at all.
About to be 2 to go. Wayne Walker's race lead 5 seconds. Hall and Latter just 3/10 apart. Coming onto the front straight, they go. And Latter's done some big saving. Dan Hall didn't look like he was, and we might have reached a crossover on some of that. With 2 laps to go, it's quite easy to calculate, am I going to run out of fuel or not? Hall's driving down the middle of the road. Latter alongside him, around the outside in the braking zone at turn 1, crossing under, great traction too. We remain alongside for second place, heading towards turn 3. Dan Hall just hold on to this one. Latter's finally looking a little more aggressive again though.
Yeah, with only about a lap and a half left to go in this thing, it is now or never. He needs to make this happen and make it work, and he's showing that racecraft that we know he has, and we've seen all of this season, that he's been able to battle and try to find ways past people. There you go, Dan Hall struggling a bit under acceleration, so his tyres are definitely struggling here, and Ladder's just got to find that opportunity here. We're coming to the second half of this lap, and Ladder still chasing some fuel savings at the moment, so he is still clutching and coasting where he can while fighting for second. This is a game of cat and mouse that Ladder is playing with himself. The cat chasing fuel savings, the mouse running away and trying to find lap time. As we come around to start the final lap here, Ken is playing a dangerous game.
So Wayne Walker coming towards the white flag to begin the final lap of the race. Christian Smart has been off the road at turn 1, and second and third here. Ken Ladder's best opportunity is going to be this braking zone at turn 1, but can he go full throttle, full beans into it? I think he looks down at how much fuel he's got left. He's going, what have I got left for this final lap? Dan Hall will cover off again, but also goes a little bit of savings. Ken Ladder goes deep into the corner. He won't be able to cross over this time. Will he go all the way around the outside of turn 1? Remain alongside with Dan Hall ahead, trying to squeeze out Ken Ladder before turn 3. Ladder's going to keep his nose in. Oh, he can't quite. Dan Hall knows there's space to come across. Gets a tap or two, but he'll hold that track position. And it's Supercars Racing from Dan Hall. Knows exactly how long his car is and keeps it in front of Ken Ladder, who'll give him 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tap. Round the outside for Dan Hall, for Ken Ladder versus Dan Hall. Again, Dan Hall stays just in front. We'll get another tap to his bumper.
Set up here, try and make something happen. I don't know if it's going to happen. Dan Hall's done a great job of holding him up. Wayne Walker not far from taking the flag here, but Dan Hall, it looks like he might hold on to this. Ladder has had a little bit of a slide there. Is that all that Hall needs to hold on to second in this race? Ladder is going to give it everything he's got into the last turn, and with the draft onto the straight here, it's on for Young and Odd. He might get a bit of overlap here. Hall has gone wide onto the marbles. Ladder's going to sneak through.
There's no traction out there. A little mistake from Dan Hall. Take a look at Ken Ladder. But Wayne Walker wins. Ken Ladder does get that second place. Dan Hall crumbling right at the end under the pressure will get third place. Paul Young's coming around for fourth. What a race.
And you couldn't script any of that. Any of it. I couldn't tell you who was going to win that one. Great race by Dan Hall there, even to come up to third there with the unfortunate getting on the marbles and just getting a bit wide. But, hey, Chad Lewis going to come across the line here for fifth, up 16, ran the strategy perfectly to get ahead of those that went onto the wet tyres earlier on in the race and came through there. He didn't take a wet tyre, he stayed on the dries. And he comes home fifth. Great race there. More of the field pouring across the line at the moment. We're hearing some race control call-outs going on in the last lap here too, as they start to pour across the start-finish line.
Monumental field spread as Brian Borg finishes in 6th place, more than a minute behind the race winner. And Troy Stonestreet just behind him. Dean Logsdale, Chris Burridge and Damien Cairns will be our top 10, and only our top 10 will be on the lead lap after 300 kilometres. Cairns been coasting in this final stint, so I'm going to guess that his heart rate's more at 110.
I'm going to go 118, I think. It's been high tonight. He's been involved in it.
There you go. Well done, Rocky.
One off. There we go, 118. I'll take that one. Well done to Damien. 200th round of V8 Vets here. Season 4 all the way through to season 27 and doing some burnouts to celebrate his 200th round. Well done to you, Damien.
That's everyone across the checkered flag at Fuji Speedway, a race where a little bit of rain fell. Not quite enough, and not quite for long enough. Wayne Walker rolls down, and he has taken another victory to extend his championship lead. Ken Latta on the podium, and Dan Hall plus 10 spots from 13th on the grid. The Evolution Racing team followed the right strategy and benefited from it. Paul Young, a slight underfueling, the wrong compound in the pit stop that elongated it, and he went from challenging for the win to 4th place. Chad Lewis in 5th, Brian Borg 6th, 3 pit stops for him.
Greg Sharp in 14th. Those two were pretty inseparable this race. Wayne Sanderson in 15th, Andrew Rushworth 16th, Logan Barnett in 17th, Shane Randell with a good run in 18th there, Alex Kiddes with an even better run in 19th, and Ray Smith rounding out the top 20 here tonight.
21st, Matthew Stoyles. 22nd, Luke Allman. And then Darren Goosey, 23rd. Dean Flavel there, 24th. John Gallen, 25th. Phil Manuel, 26th. Matt Brunt, 27th. Christian Smart in 28th. Mark Poynton, 29th. And Michael Stewart, 30th.
And to round out our field here tonight, we've got Reese DeGoey in 31st, Scott McKenzie, who suffered some internet issues, in 32nd, Brad Doble 33rd, Simon Hedderscheid in 34th, Lorne McKee in 35th. Then we're knocking on the door of some of our retirees for the night of Tim Mulford in 36th, Dave Arney 37th, and then Travis Hunt rounds out our 38 car field here in 38th.
I think I can get down off my strategy high horse now. And altitude sickness on that high horse for me.
I mean, fair enough. It was a doozy of a night out there tonight.
We can speak to our podium and ask them some questions about all of it. Live points there. Good round for Ken Latta. Paul Young, though, still holding on to 2nd place. Wayne Walker extends his championship lead. There'll be a couple of bonus points coming his way as well. And then, Logsdale, Stone Street, Poynton, Allman, Borg, Sharp, and Brunt as the top 10 just there. Allman drops a couple of points. Borg will still pick up a few for 6th place. And, the rest too. Let's get to the podium. And 3rd place finisher Daniel Hall will join us. 300 kilometers is a big race, but what happened in the last one?
Man, I really enjoyed the longer races, hey. It just allows for a bit more strategy. But yeah, really happy with how we went. The right strategy called us stay out. It was very close whether we should come in for wets or not, but as soon as we started catching cars that were on wet, I was like, no way, this is so much faster. And then, caught Kenny, and he stepped aside. I thought, okay, he's saving a bit of fuel. I had to save about 2 litres after the last stop as well. And I knew he was just going to tuck in, save a bit of fuel, and then put the pressure on at the end. And I was so proud of myself right up until that final corner. And it just pushed that little bit wide. As soon as it gets out into the marbles, it's game over. You're just along for the ride. So, still very happy with P3 and had a lot of fun, that's for sure.
Much strategy chat on the radio because you and Chad followed basically the same plan and you're both up big spots in this race.
Yeah, definitely. I had a pretty good start on lap 1 and made a few positions there, a few others tripping up and things. And I said to Chad, let's just tuck in and see what the leaders do, and we'll just see what the times are like. And he was calling out, there's a bunch of guys starting to come in for wets now, and we were just watching the times on our timing screen, and if the guys in front of me jumped in, I would have jumped in as well. But we're also watching the forecast and basically counting down to see how long this would last and whether we could hang in there until the rain stopped. And yeah, fortunately it did. There was definitely a few times where both Chad and I were contemplating coming in, but yeah, glad we didn't. It was a close one.
My count here is only 4 cars never fitted a set of wet tyres, and they occupy the top 5.
Yeah, it was definitely the right strategy call there. It's tricky with the wet tyres because they do take a few laps to come in, and it just wasn't enough water on the track to justify it. We did do a bit of wet testing last night in the practice servers all week. It kind of rained a little bit and then stopped. So last night we just set up our own little practice session just to get a lot of water on the track and see what it was like, just to see the lap times, so we can then try and ascertain what is that cutover point. So that definitely helped us, help that strategy call, because we knew what the lap times were going to be like, and obviously the dryers weren't getting down to that. So yeah, it was worth doing, that's for sure.
Well, once you've got the toothpaste out of the tube, it's hard to get back in. Dan Hall, you're the driver of the day, M1 Used Cars Driver of the Day at Fuji.
Oh, amazing. Thank you very much. I'm flattered. Thank you.
Great strategy call between yourself and Chad, some of the biggest movers in the race. And again, 2 of 4 cars in a 38-car field that stayed on the slick tyres, which were always, at every single lap of the race, the quicker choice.
Yeah, it was getting pretty tricky passing the guys on the wets, and just the way that we're able to pass them anywhere, inside, outside corners, just about anywhere we could pass them. So yeah, it was very clearly the right call.
Well, 2 races left. Wishing you and your team the best of luck, and we'll see you there.
Good on you. Thanks very much, David.
Great to hear from our 3rd place finisher, and Brocky, you'll hear from 2nd place. We'll probably have an even bigger smile.
Ken, welcome to the comms box, mate, and that was a hard-fought 2nd place out there tonight with some changeable conditions, mate. Talk us through how you're feeling.
Oh, pretty good. I was able to pick him at the end. I couldn't be happier. Obviously it would have been nice to win, but Wayne's flying, and he saved the fuel on the second stint when it mattered. So yeah, but still, apart from that, I'm really happy. It was good.
And tell us, with Dan Hall at the end there, what was the plan? Had you thought about trying to go for a move down at the final turn before he kind of slipped off into the weeds, or had you kind of resigned yourself to 3rd place before he kind of slipped off the track there?
Yeah, well, I've done a few races here before, and I know full well you can take a shallower line in there and get underneath him there, and that's what my plan after I couldn't get him out the back straight there. It was a little bit hairy going around the long rider, and it sort of slightly touched and he got a little loose, but obviously didn't gain the position like that, which was good. So, and yeah, I don't know, well, saving fuel for a fair part of that particular stint, and couldn't hang on to Wayne. He had better pace anyway, but I had to save fuel, and then just dropped back behind Dan and tried to hang on to him up until the 3 or 4 laps to go, and then that's where I was going, all right, I think I've got enough fuel now, and that's when I turned it up.
And talk to us a bit about that fuel situation. So we could hear you clutching in and coasting to try and save the fuel. Was that just a factor of how the race played out, with where the pit stops landed with the rain and the tyres and all that sort of thing?
I just because obviously we weren't going as quick when we were trying to manage the wet conditions on a slick tyre, and when I come in for that stop, I just didn't allow for the fact that it's going to be dry running to the end, and I think it was 2 or 3 laps into that stint I knew I was in trouble. So,
well, I mean, for a guy that is saying you're in trouble, damn good effort to still snag that 2nd place out of it and manage that fuel to the end there, mate. And I guess when Wayne got past, did you feel like if it wasn't for the fuel saving, you had enough pace to take on Wayne, or do you reckon he had that pace when the conditions got dry again?
No, I think he just had that pace. He's had the pace all week. I think he's been about 0.2 or 0.3 quicker than anyone else all week long. So, and we did the best we could, but still happy. We're trying to find whatever it is that must be something he's eating, or I don't know. But whatever he's doing, it's definitely working. So.
It's those wheat bix he puts into in the morning, mate. That's, I reckon, what gives him the extra
Absolutely.
strength to get there.
Well,
Before we let you go, mate.
I'll eat me Wheaties too, but maybe I need eat an extra couple instead of just 3 or 4.
That's it, mate. You have to test the limits and let us know next week how you go. But before we let you go, man, is there anyone you want to shout out or thank?
Oh, well done to Wayne. Once again, he drove a clinical race, and bad luck to Paul. He put the wrong tyres on. He put wets on when he was supposed to put dries on. So that's unfortunate for him. And well done to Dan. Like he drove a really awesome race, and those end laps that we did, no, they were hard fought and very honest. So well done to him, and all the guys at Fishy, you guys, and Race Control, and also this doesn't really get mentioned enough. Also McKnight for doing all the sets. So. And all our sponsors, Western Motor Group, Infinity Design, DC Shades, Battery Warehouse, Ellie Beach, MGS Gaming, and Index Designs. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Ken. Great race out there tonight, mate. We look forward to chatting to you more next week.
All right. Cheers, guys.
That was Ken Latta, our second place driver, and David, I'll bring in Wayne Walker, our race winner tonight.
All about reading the conditions at Suzuka. Wayne, what were you expecting? How did it play out? How did you react?
Yeah, I wasn't too sure what to expect coming into it. And then when it sort of started raining, it was like, what do I do? And I just stayed out as long as I could. Another maybe 3 laps, I would have probably been in for wets, but then it stopped raining, and after that it actually dried up pretty quick. So it was a good call to sort of stay out as long as I could. Because I know, like anybody who did swap to the wets lost a lot of time having to come back in for dries again.
How confident did you feel at about the halfway point of the race? You had Ken Latta, Brian Borg, Paul Young right with you.
Oh, yeah, up until I think, I was a bit sort of worried sort of mid-race when we were all in a bunch. And then I think Borg pitted for wets, and the 3 of us stayed out, and then after that last pit stop, and I got past Ken, then I think he had to fuel save as well, so I was able to pull a gap on him, and then it was just just trying to not burn the tires out too much and keep that gap. But yeah. It wasn't until I sort of got past Ken and started pulling away that I was confident. Before that, I wasn't really sure how it was going to turn out.
I don't think I've ever seen a V8 Vets race with as much lapped traffic, and in some tricky conditions. That also, I'm sure, gave you a lot of workload.
Oh, when it was wet out there on the slicks, it was really hard. It was a really hard, stage of the race. You had to sort of tippy toe around because there was a couple of corners where if you sort of went in a bit hard, the car would just snap sideways, and it was tough. But the ones who come into the pits for wets, it hurt them. And that's definitely why there's so many cars that were a lap down, because it was a massive, even when they stopped for wets, the slicks were still quicker. So, and then it dried up. So, yeah, it was massive disadvantage doing that.
This is one of those rounds where it feels like being part of a team and having some teammates that are switched on is useful. We saw Dan Hall and Chad Lewis, the ERT guys, not go to wet tyres and gain massively from that. Damien Cairns in his 200th round also stayed on the slick tyres and finished inside the top 10.
Yeah, he drove really good tonight. We were on the radio talking to each other, and yeah, he kept asking me, "Are you going to pit? Are you going to pit?" And I'm like, "I'm going to stay out," because I was watching the radar and I could see that we were nearly past the rain. So yeah, we sort of, there was a lap or two where it was pretty bad, but then after that, yeah, it stopped and we're able to continue on the slicks. And yeah, like Dan and Chad, yeah, they both moved up massively by not stopping for wets, which, yeah, like tonight was definitely the right call.
Well done. Big 300 Ks, and you've come out on top again. It's either Walker or Borg this season, and you keep that streak going.
Yeah, no, it was good to get the win again, because that was 300 Ks around here. It's tough, and then with the rain in the middle, made it even tougher and more interesting in that. But yeah, it was good to get the win. And yeah, shout out to Damien as well on the top 10 in his 200th race.
Well, we look forward to 2 more for him this season, and also for you, Wayne.
Yeah, look forward to the next 2 races.
We'll see you there. Congratulations once again, and anyone you'd like to thank.
Just everyone, like all the admin of the league, race control, you guys for the broadcast. Always do an amazing job. Congratulations to Ken and Dan. You know, they both drove really good tonight. All the other competitors as well. Like the field is like very strong, and wouldn't happen without them. And my team as well, Accelerate Sim Racing, all the guys there for their help as well. And our sponsors, Abbey Timber, Primal Wheels, Box and Lock Narang, and Modern Deck.
Thanks, Wayne. Well done.
Thank you.
Well, Brocky, how's your voice? I only had to scream once, and we've got a week until they go racing again next.
I'll be honest, I'm glad I don't have any meetings at work tomorrow, because they probably couldn't hear me anyway. 300 kilometers might be it's an enduro for the guys physically and mentally in the sim, but for us in our voice boxes, it's certainly an enduro as well. But that was a great addition of the V8 Vets at Fuji, and truly didn't really know who was going to win that one all the way until those last few laps when Wayne Walker managed to steal it away. But that's what we love about the V8 Vets. You never quite know who's gonna snag a win or a podium until those last few laps.
Well, next time out, it's the Nürburgring 24-hour layout. So big laps. It won't be 67 laps. I think it'll be 8. Strategy will also be interesting there, and it's one of those tracks that some drivers have practiced a lot and they're so strong at, and other drivers just don't quite fancy it so much. Me, I love it, and I can't wait, and I hope you'll join us next week on SimSpeed TV for RaceKraft V8 Vets on the Nordschleife. RaceKraft V8 Vets is of course supported by RaceKraft and Logitech G, Nova Sim Sports, Parramatta Isuzu Ute, Project Fade Streetwear, and we saw the Project Fade Streetwear safety car just once today, early in the race at Fuji. M1 Used Cars, supporters of the Driver of the Day and the Balin Stewart Foundation, and LGC Images. Been David Haynes with Brock Cadday and Daniel Yeaman for SimSpeed TV as Wayne Walker continues his winning ways in the spray at Fuji.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.